23-24-1. The board approved an employee's request to end their unpaid leave early. Public Employee Discipline Dismissal Release PED 23-24-1, 23-24-1. Information received, and finally PED 23-24-3, information received. Next, we have our patriotic exercise, Pledge of Allegiance. Come.
Good evening. Tonight, I have the pleasure of bringing forward two incredible bulldogs to you. We have Layla Osinski, and I'm going to let them introduce themselves. I'm going to let them introduce themselves. One moment.
Layla Osinski. I'm a fifth grader at McKinley, and my favorite memory is the Harvest Festival. And probably my favorite subject is the biography T. I'm doing Amelia. I'm Dean Campanelli, and I'm in fifth grade. I think my favorite thing about, my favorite memory is the biography T. And for this year's biography T, I'm doing Albert Einstein.
Which you are all invited to. It's coming up in March. Maybe 14th. And they are both going to lead us in the pledge. Layla's going to do it in English with Dean following in Spanish.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Prometo lealtad a la bandera de los Estados Unidos de América y a la república que la representa, una nación bajo Dios indivisible, con libertad y justicia para todos.
Thank you, Layla and Dean. Great job. Would you like to have your picture taken with the board?
The board president.
Board president.
1, 2, 3. And if I can have you move just a little closer. 1, 2, 3. Okay, now look at Shmueli. Shmueli. Then the tongue twister.
Thanks, guys. Great job.
Yay.
All right, roll call. Lisa Mudd.
Here.
Trustee Sarah Ghulam Hussein.
Here.
Trustee Florence Wong.
Here.
Dan Boyd.
Here.
I'm here. We're all present. Item 8, approval of the agenda. Would anyone like to make a motion?
Make a motion to approve tonight's agenda. I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Carries 5-0. Next, item 9, approval of minutes from January 9th and January 22nd, 2024. We have a motion on the
I'll
minutes.
move to approve the minutes from January 9, 2024 and January 22nd, 2024.
I'll second.
Great. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Item 10, public statements related to agenda items. Do we have any public statements, Kirsten?
Not for agenda items.
Okay. Item 11 is union statement from the BEA. Do we have a representative, Dan?
Good evening, everybody. Hello to the Board of Trustees, our executive administration of BSD, and the Burlingame community. It's rare that this room is so full. Thanks for being here. My name is Danny Bird. I'm the president of the Burlingame Education Association, which is the teachers union in the Burlingame School District. I'm going to try to keep my statement as brief as possible. Our BEA executive board, which is composed of teachers within the district at all of our sites, are pleased to begin negotiations starting in April, and we've seen how the change in administration can affect morale and professional turnover. It's a really big growing problem, not just in our district and not just in our state, but across the country. Sorry, lost my place. The professional turnover is a growing problem, and we have a chance to really retain the talent that we have. I really want to echo the sentiment of our members and say that we look forward to continuing a mutually beneficial professional working environment. And part of that relationship is paying teachers well and maintaining the excellence that we strive for as a district. Our teaching staff includes innovators, artists, authors, creators, scientists, mathematicians, athletes, and far more than I can even explain. We define what excellence is as showcased in our students' work in what we strive to do every day. We collectively have worked tirelessly to complete district-required assessments that help inform our instruction, and our RSP, RTI, music, and PE teachers play integral parts of functioning in the school, right? And we can't function without them. I say all of this as a very gentle reminder to try to retain the talent in our district. I think this is my year 5, and we've lost, since I've been here, there have been 87 teachers that have left. So I definitely think it's worth considering all possibilities for improving retention of our talented staff. And on a totally separate note, I would be remiss if I did not advocate for an inclusive, mild, moderate special education classroom. And the district used to have one, and our members would like to continue a unique conversation in the way that we can best service them across our district. And I ask all stakeholders within the district to take note of this request and have the difficult conversations that require courtesy and our best practices. Thank you.
Thank you, Danny. Do we have a statement from the CSEA representative?
Hi, good evening, school trustees, cabinet, and Superintendent Silversmith. My name is Allie. I'm the treasurer of the CSEA Burlingame chapter. I'm also an instructional aide at McKinley. I have the pleasure of working with students from TK all the way to 5th grade. Thank you for having me here tonight. I'd like to start off first by thanking Superintendent Dr. Marla Silversmith, as well as Kirsten Dukakis, for their continued collaborative effort in maintaining communication between the district office and classified staff members. This means a lot to us. I would also like to thank our union president, Lori Suhu, who is the secretary at McKinley. She couldn't be here today, but I think it's important that we acknowledge all her contributions in our community. Anyone who knows Lori knows that she is a kind and caring person and works hard at McKinley. The staff, the students, and the parents love her and appreciate her. Lori always goes beyond the call of duty and works tirelessly for our school community. She is also committed to helping advocate for our classified staff members. Thank you, Lori, for all your contributions in our Burlingame community. I also want to share a brief update of the last couple of months, starting off with a thank you again to Marla and her team for organizing the special board meeting back in December regarding FCMAT's findings and recommendations for our district. We really appreciate your transparency and initiative. Lastly, we're also grateful for our partnership with the Burlingame School District. Last January, Lori and myself, alongside our CBO, Marie de la Cruz, had the opportunity to attend and learn at the 2024-25 Governor's State Budget Proposal Workshop in Sacramento. Thank you, Marie, for your leadership and guidance and for being open to answering any of our questions. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.
Thank you. Now we have a few principals here tonight. We have someone making a statement for item 13. Joy.
Going for the McKinley trifecta.
All right.
I am here tonight as a proud leader of my Bulldog pack. My principal report is very short, as you'll be hearing from all of us individually tonight as we report on our SPSAs. As a group, we sat in on many student of concern and SSP meetings, as well as parent conferences over the last couple of weeks. We've met collaboratively as a team to support one another and are knee-deep in registration for next year, while we're just over 100 days into this one. We are looking forward to the over-top amount of red and pink we will see tomorrow, Valentine's Day, and are ready collectively for our February. There are more for us shortly on item 17, I believe.
Thank you, Joy. Marla.
Thank you. As Joy talked about, registration has opened, and if you have not re-registered your child yet, we have 7 principals eagerly awaiting to try and take away the trophy from Roosevelt and Mr. Paveo. There is as many, we try to get to 100% of free registration, so we know exactly who is coming and who might not be returning, so that we are able to help with our staffing ratios going forward. So we are very high in that. We had a communication training with Jen Murphy as an all management team recently, and that was actually great. We talked about hard conversations and how to do agendas and support each other. So that was a great training. Our parcel tax poll has concluded. We have not received the results, but that has concluded. So thank you to all of our community that took the poll. We really appreciate the time that you put into that. I also attended Cabinet, attended FICMAT's Projection Pro, which is an online software that helps to support financial decisions made. So it actually imports straight from the state versus having us manually put it in. So we're looking forward to working with them further. And finally, I was able to attend San Mateo Union High School District's Let's Talk with Superintendent Booker. So he hosted all the feeder districts and community members. And it was great to come together and look at data. Our data was shown along with the other feeder district data compared to San Mateo Union High School districts. So it was a great conversation to have collectively. So appreciate him inviting us. That's it.
Thank you, Marla. So we'll have statements of board members. Start with Lisa.
We don't have a whole lot to report out tonight. I attended the board liaison meeting 2 weeks ago now. The purpose of that meeting is to just have communication between board members, district office members, staff, and open lines of communication. Topics that came, it was sort of a round table conversation. Topics that came up were BCE readathon, translations for conferences, and one teacher brought up the possibility of discussing our SEL curriculum again and seeing if it's meeting the needs of our students. I also attended the owners meeting with Dan, and it was at Lincoln where we got to see possible options for construction placement. We reviewed budget allocation and possible emerging needs.
Sarah.
Let's see, I had the pleasure of going with Marla to my old stomping grounds, believe it or not, at McKinley. It was a rainy day, but you really showed up. So thank you for indulging me and doing that site visit. It was really great to see what's going on at that site.
Lawrence.
I want to wish everybody a happy Lunar New Year if you are celebrating that. And even if you aren't, it's a happy time. If you're not married, you get those red envelopes. So I went to the DAC meeting on January 22nd, and we've been having really good discussions there. Wes leads those meetings, and we're really trying to kind of rebuild it into a place where, you know, all the sites can share best practices and really get a timeline going so that possibly we can have SPSAs available earlier in the year. And so some of the parents who are in this meeting are even talking about how it would be nice if even in the spring, there's, you know, site councils could actually talk about the SPSAs for the following year. So because they don't meet in the summer, you know, it would be nice if they had something, you know, to work with as soon as they started meeting in the fall. So just to try to get it going, because even though, you know, we're hearing about the SPSAs tonight, that's the guide for this current year. And, it's already February. So, how can we kind of have that process happen sooner, even if we're still waiting for things like CASP scores and that kind of thing? Like, is there other data that the school district already gathers on our own that could inform SPSAs so that they could be done sooner? And then if necessary, they could be, amended, maybe if CASP scores come out and it indicates something very different than what they thought. So they're just trying to think. A lot of the parents were just feeling like it would be nice if the SPSAs came earlier in the year, and how could that be done? And they really feel like, when site council finally meets come fall, they're like way behind already. So just thought I'd share. So that's it.
Thank you. Dan?
Nothing to present.
Okay. I'm not going to present anything either. I'm going to say we have a very long agenda. I think we have 9 presentations this evening. So for the benefit of all of you, more so than all of us who've signed up for this, but we'll try to keep things moving, but recognize we have a lot on the agenda. So we'll move straight to consent agenda. We have a motion on the, or first, is there anyone that would like to remove anything from the consent agenda? Okay. Great. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second.
Great. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, 5-0. So we're on to item 17, which is the recognition of National African American History Month. And Dr. Tang, you're gonna take this one?
Yeah, thank you very much. We're proud to recognize February as the National African American History Month. We invite families who are here to read the resolution out loud to us.
Hi, my name is Cadence. I go to Franklin Elementary. I'm in 5th grade. My favorite subject is probably writing. And yeah.
Hi, my name is Hannah. I go to Franklin. I'm in 5th grade. And my favorite subject is probably science. Hello, my name is Joshua Tamanatonia Akuibo. I go to BIS. I'm in 6th grade, and I'm here to represent community for the Burlingame Intermediate School.
Hello, my name is Adrian Charles Lester. I go to BIS. I'm in 7th grade. And I'm here to represent the resolution so everyone can be treated equally.
Whereas the relevance of February goes back to 1926 when founder Dr. Carter G. Woodson first established Black History Month week during the 2nd week of February to coincide with the birthdays of President Abraham Lincoln and Frederick Douglass, activist and author. And whereas in 1976, the week-long celebration was extended to the entire month of February. And
whereas National African American History Month, also known as Black History Month, is a national tradition established in response of the ignorant and oftentimes bias and deception of Black history and African American communities in history books and school curricula of the era. And whereas a National African American History Month in February celebrates the contributes Black Americans have made to American history and their struggles for freedom and equality, and deepens our understanding of our nation's history. And
National African American History Month is a time for us to continue our collective journey honoring and increasing our knowledge of the history and contributions of Black Americans and people of African descent that have been marginalized from mainstream curricula and discussions because of our country's legacy of slavery and institutional and structural racism. And Whereas African Americans helped develop our nation in countless ways, those recognized, unrecognized, and unrecorded. And whereas August 2019 marked 400 years since the first arrival of Africans to present-day America, and the United States Congress established the 400 Years of African American History Commission to commemorate the historical heritage and active contributions that Americans of African descent have made to help shape the cultural, academic, social, economic, and moral attributes to this nation. And whereas this year's theme is African Americans and the arts, which spans many impacts on visual and performing arts, literature, fashion, architecture, culinary, film, music, and other forms of cultural expression, the African American influence has been paramount.
Whereas remaining hopeful and confident about the path ahead, and the time to acknowledge the courageous fight for rights, free liberties, and freedom for all Americans. And whereas Black history is American history, and understanding and appreciating the experiences of Black individuals is crucial to understanding the full story of our country. And now therefore be it resolved. The Burlingame School District Board of Education observes and honors African American History Month and encourages educators, students, and families to learn about the heritage and achievements of African Americans through appropriate programs and activities that reflect the theme for 2024.
Thank you all very much.
And I also just want to thank Dr. Williams. He runs our Families of African Americans organization. So thank you to Dr. Williams.
All right, I think we have a roll call vote on this one, so I'll start with Lisa.
Yes.
Sarah.
Yes.
Lawrence.
Yes.
Dan.
Yes.
Yes. So 5-0.
Do we need a first and a second?
Oh, yes, you're right.
I'll move to approve the resolution.
I'll second.
Okay, and in favor?
Yes.
Sarah.
Yes.
Lawrence.
Yes.
Dan.
Yes.
Yes. 5-0. Thank you, Kirsten.
Thank you, Mr. Brown.
I'm good at this. All right, item 17B, speech language pathologists and occupational therapists presentation. Kirsten, is our is there mic working? That one seems to be cutting in and out a little bit.
We can try this one.
Let's try that one.
Let's try this. One version.
Well, good evening, everyone. We want to start by thanking all of you for inviting us here tonight to give a very brief, and I'll emphasize brief, overview of sort of the roles we have as speech language pathologist and occupational therapist. So I'm Jennifer Guerrero. This is my second year here at Burlingame School District, but 17th year as a speech language pathologist. And I have the absolute pleasure of serving students at Washington and Franklin Elementary.
I'm Evelyn Lane, speech therapist at BIS, and I also provide AT and AAC services.
My name is Diane Kelly, and I am a half-time speech therapist here in the Burlingame School District. And I think this is year 19, and I enjoy the entire team here.
My name is Jacqueline Freitas, and I work at Roosevelt Elementary School as a speech language pathologist.
Good evening, I'm Jessica Smith, and this is my 10th year in Burlingame School District, and I work with our students at Lincoln, McKinley, Hoover, and Roosevelt. I'm an OT, sorry, occupational therapist.
My name is Grace Lee. This is my second year at BSD. I'm an occupational therapist, and I work at Franklin, Washington, and BIS.
And I think I'm going to add, because I forgot to say where I work, left one school out, I work at Lincoln.
All right, so now that we have the who, we'll jump to the first slide that tells us what. So what is a speech language pathologist? We are pretty much professionals that treat and diagnose communication disorders. Oh, there we go. So as school-based speech therapist, I think you have to hit one more. Sorry. Oop. Wrong way. Okay, there we go. So as speech language pathologists, we diagnose and treat communication disorders. And as school-based speech therapists, our role is to determine how those communication disorders impact a student's ability to access the general education curriculum. So why do we provide these services? Besides it being a federal and state mandate under IDEA or Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, we want every student's voice to be heard and every student to feel successful in school. So speech therapy works on enhancing a student's communication skills, which can impact their overall academics, social interaction, and overall well-being. The next slide. There we go. So this slide just highlights the number of students that receive services in the Burlingame school districts. What we want to highlight is that you'll see with Roosevelt, it does have a higher percentage of students that receive services. And that's because at Roosevelt, they do have 3 special day classes. And the majority of the students that are enrolled in those special day classes receive special speech services. We also want to highlight that the main goal in the elementary school level is to identify students with communication disorders early so that we can provide the services and support so that as they transition to BIS, that number is lower and decreases and they no longer need our support. So if you can see in that chart, when we look at BIS, the total percentage of students that receive our services is just a little under 4%. So now that we know the students that receive the services, I'm going to pass it on to Evelyn, who's going to go over the referral process and speech and language impairment eligibility.
We will briefly discuss the referral process and the speech or language impairment eligibility. Speech and or language services falls under the umbrella of special education. The next 4 slides reveal how our services are initiated and the process of receiving speech and or language services. The first step in the process is a referral, either by parents, teachers, or student study team. We then create an assessment plan, and once parents sign the assessment plan, we have 60 days to complete the evaluation. Based on the standardized testing, along with classroom observations, language sample, teacher report, and parents' input, we use the following criteria to determine if the student is eligible under the category speech or language impairment. As this slide shows, the first 3 areas look at articulation, normal voice, and fluency or stuttering. This slide shows the criteria for the 4th area, which is a language impairment. We assessed 4 different language areas: morphology, syntax, semantics, and pragmatics. A student can qualify under 1 or more of those areas if their standard score falls below the 7th percentile. A student does not qualify if their delays are due to English language acquisition. If a student qualifies for speech or language impairment, then we develop an individualized education program, or IEP. It highlights our role in developing, monitoring, and implementing the IEP. IEPs are developed based on the results of the assessments. We develop goals that are reviewed annually and reassessed every 3 years to determine if the student continues to meet speech or language impairment eligibility criteria. This slide highlights the number of assessments we have done through the district. We assess preschool students that are referred by the Golden Gate Regional Center as they turn 3, and we assess students that are referred to us by their parents who resides in Burlingame but attend a private school or are homeschooled. Based on this data that we have collected, we are seeing an increase on the number of referrals we are receiving, specifically with private school and preschool students. We are expecting more referrals to come in before the end of this school year. We are also screening every kindergarten student enrolled in one of our Burlingame schools.
So we have Dr. Silversmith to thank for bringing the universal kindergarten speech and language screenings to our school district several years ago. We just conducted our kindergarten screenings this past January. The screenings are very important for early identification and interventions for our students. Getting support for students at an early age helps with not only their communication skills, but linguistic skills needed for reading, writing, and social and emotional development. So what is the overall trend right now? We anticipate the number of speech and language assessments to continue to increase based on those early identification and interventions with the Golden Gate Regional Center, the Universal Kindergarten Screeners, and referrals for private school students who do not have a speech language pathologist at their school. So speech language pathologists provide evidence-based therapy for students and with communication disorders in order to improve their ability to express themselves and to understand the curriculum in their school. The communication skills we teach are not taught in isolation. We collaborate with our students' teachers, paraprofessionals, and families to ensure the students' skills are generalized outside of the speech therapy room to their classroom and social settings.
Thank you. I'm happy to share an overview of what occupational therapy services look like in our district. We assess students for various areas such as fine motor skills, visual motor, visual perceptual, sensory processing, and self-care skills to help them access their educational program. We provide direct services as well as consultative services to help implement their IEP goals. And we also complete initial and triennial assessments. So in order to support these areas, we work with students on their grasp, handwriting, using cutting with scissors, coloring, various types of supports in order to help them access those part of their classroom schedule. We also work with teachers and students to support possible sensory processing areas that can help students with overall self-regulation and focus. This is a breakdown of where myself and Grace work currently. You can see, as we mentioned at the start, these are the school sites we serve and the percentage of students that receive our services. And then this is an overview. I started with the district in 2014, so I was hired as a district employee. Prior to that, we contracted for our services, and we've had two full-time staff until last year when we went down to 1 full-time and part-time, and then this year back up to 1.8.
Right, just to kind of reiterate what Jessica said, we worked on developmental hand skills, also like letter formations and handwriting fluency and bilateral coordinations, and all of these are very important for kids to access their curriculum, as well as also in terms of to access their curriculum. And consultative services is very important because it helps the teachers to learn about different accommodations that might work for their students, and also environmental changes that could be possible in their classrooms as well. The referral process is made by either the IEP team or parent request, and sometimes the teacher would ask us to, to check on the child, and we would come in and observe and see whether the child is eligible for an assessment. An assessment plan is provided to the parent for signature, and once that is signed, we would complete the assessment within 60 days, and we would see whether the student is eligible for our service or whether we can go in another route to provide any strategies or accommodations. And school-based OT is a related service. So In order to receive an OT, the student needs to have an IEP and must be found eligible under one of the 13 special education eligibility categories. So it cannot be a standalone service. So for the OT assessment, we again have seen an increase in overall, especially for private and homeschool and preschool assessments. Last year it was 14, but now up to, for this academic year, it only has been just past 100 days, but it has been over 14 assessments that has been done. And this is also the initials, triennials, preschool and private school assessments all in combination. Last year it was 48, and right now currently it's 44 until January. And we also have additional evaluations that we have to do in February. So that number is a little bit higher. Again, as OTs, we support the district and also the school sites through department meetings and also staff professional development trainings and consultations and collaboration with teachers and classroom staff to meet student needs. And we also as well collaborate with private OTs if the student is receiving any private OTs, or if it's a private school, we also collaborate with their teachers as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll offer questions.
I just have a question. So because you're having such an increase in people who are either homeschooled or private schooled, are you still having those students come see you at one of our sites though for their OT or speech therapies? You're not going there, right?
They come to their home school, but they're assigned.
That technically would have been their catchment school. And do they come after school hours or?
Yeah, it's provided during school hours. So
Okay.
they would have
So they leave wherever they are and come see you. Okay.
And what do you think led to the increase in identifying students earlier from that are not in our district?
COVID related. I feel like just having that not enough schooling exposure for all kids K to 12 has been really affecting COVID. That's kind of a big method.
I'd add also that we noticed a few years ago during, as COVID, we were still in it, that with our universal kindergarten screeners, a lot of kindergartners had more S difficulties than we had seen in previous years. And that's dropped down now that we are no longer wearing masks and now that they're no longer wearing masks. So it definitely was an impact. And I think research has shown that as well. Anecdotally, I'm going to talk really fast. In my other district, I had the highest I've had of preschoolers enrolled in speech and language was 4. It's a tiny district. 2 years ago, I had 14. So that it's just anecdotal.
Yeah, I had a related question with respect to COVID, distance learning and masking. I'm sure there were a lot of speech language issues. Do you feel we're caught up where we should be?
I feel that we were able to give a lot of students the services, even though they were different. I feel that, I don't know how everyone else's trend is, that things that we might not have heard or might not have seen, for example, S difficulties might have been more prevalent than we were able to see. I feel like those are caught up.
But I think where we are seeing we're not quite caught up yet is with just the peer interactions, because I think there was such a delay in terms of just having the opportunity to be able to play with other peers. So we are seeing a lot more just difficulties with just peer interactions.
Any more questions? Great. Well, I want to thank you all for coming in the presentation, but more importantly for the great work. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, 17C, mid-year monitoring report for the 23-24 LCAP. And I believe Nate's presenting.
right, good evening, everyone. Oh, that's loud. I'm Nate Wong, I'm the coordinator of assessments. Good to see you all. Tonight, I am going to present an update, just a brief update on the LCAP. We are midway through this year. So just some background on the LCAP. I know obviously the LCAP is posted, or I'm sorry, the report has been posted. You've had a chance to read it. So I'm just going to go through kind of where we are in the process of developing and implementing the LCAP and where we're going to go from here. So this report really is meant as a tool for us to reflect on where we are in terms of our implementation of the LCAP. It's not something that is done every year, but we are in kind of a unique position now where we're going into the development process of a new 3-year LCAP. So the LCAP for the 2024-25 school year will actually be the LCAP for the next 3 years. So we're finishing up this 3-year cycle. You can see where we are here in the timeline in February. So basically, in the report, as you've seen, we've reported out all fiscal data in terms of spending that we have available right now. So we're about halfway through. So you'll notice things like salaries and things like that, we're halfway through the spending there. So really where we go from here is we take this data in terms of looking at the metrics and everything that I have presented here and just kind of determining how we're doing. And this will help inform the development of the new cycle of the next LCAP. So what this does is it gives us an opportunity to kind of go back, look at our goals, look at our metrics, and redo some of that and redo some of our actions, kind of reallocate our money if we feel we need to. So that's really kind of what this report is meant to kind of display for us. So really across the board, the trend here is that seeing as most of our goals, with the exception of goal number 5, are academic based, we can see, and heavily based on state testing as well. We can see here that we're not quite meeting our goals academically in terms of state testing. And just to kind of reiterate, in case anyone didn't see the report from December, but we kind of followed the state trend of really not much movement, and not much movement in ELA and a little bit of a dip in math. So I'll just kind of go through these slides and give you a chance to glance over them. But we've done some good things too, and part of this was wanting to celebrate that, and the things that we feel that are working, we want to continue doing. So the things that aren't working, we want to put aside and do something else.
Nate, could you go back to that previous slide? I had a question about. So the identified needs students with disabilities are 44.9 points below the goal of 90 points below the standard in ELA. Is that right? Because previously,
right,
it was above.
Yeah, that can't be right. I don't recall right off the top of my head what that number should be.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry about that.
All right.
Yeah.
So those and then the statement below it, the 62.8 below the goal of 96 points below the standard in math. Right. So maybe those two statements aren't quite.
Is it from the LCAP goal?
Yes.
But we have a goal for them that's 90 points below the standard.
No, that must be it.
Okay, all right. I just want,
that can't
you know
be
what I
right.
mean? Like that can't be, I'm just thinking that can't be right. So I just wanted to point that out that those need, I don't know, changing.
Nate, I can pull the dashboard if you want to keep going.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Yeah, and look for it.
Okay, and this is our last folder. And this one we didn't really have very many metrics for, so that's kind of one of the identified needs here is just the lack of metrics in general, lack of monitoring and progress monitoring there. But those are the 5 goals. Any questions? One of those of the
And could you go to goal 3, the next one? And what was goal 4? Can you? Okay.
Yeah, so the way this was written, our different student groups that we identified as wanting to focus on, we broke out into different goals or into separate goals. That's not necessary, but that's just how we decided to do that.
Any other questions from Mr. Wong? Okay. Thank you, Nate.
Marla, can I ask you a question about the unduplicated?
Yes.
So like we've, parsed it out like this, but I mean, they're going to be kids who are in all of those groups or couple or whatever. How do we decide which one they fall into? Like, how do you determine that?
Do you want to answer that, Nate, from the UPC?
Yeah, really, I mean, it's, sorry. Yeah, so when it comes to the unduplicated, we really look at all categories that a student falls into. In terms of how these metrics are calculated out, one gets chosen. So basically our English learners are not counted, or they don't fall into this category as well necessarily. So they do get separated out.
Do you know how they're chosen between SED and EL?
Yeah, let's see.
Students with disability could be multiple factors, though. They could have multiples, correct?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm trying to think.
It must be weighted, right? Like one is considered more impactful than another.
Yeah. I think we would have to research that. To
Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because there is also a difference between UPC, unduplicated counts, like singulars, where you might have intersectionality, and then unduplicated students who might be in more. So I think we need to get more information because I don't know that off the top of my head.
Yeah, so now that you bring that up, that's a really good question, and I'd have to look at the technical guide for the dashboard.
Okay.
I don't know how they calculate it. Yeah.
Yeah, I've just been curious because like, how do we pick one category? But that's all we're, okay.
They do, and I'm not sure what the.
I see. That's designated by the state?
Yeah.
Oh, right. Some things weighted heavier than another. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, there's a technical guide. I'll take a look at it.
Okay, thank you.
It's a very good question.
Thanks.
Great. Thank you. Next is item 17C, which is, 17B. BSD school plan for student achievement for the site plans and SPSAs. And we have a wonderful group presenting on these topics. Thank you.
I want to thank our school leaders for coming here tonight. I know They have worked diligently during the day to support our kiddos. We're excited for them to share. Oh, as we know that LCAP is a driving force for everything that we're doing, and our SPSA also aligns with those goals that we have. We're excited for our leaders to share their best practices, strategies, because we know that every school is different in context and the student populations that they serve. So thank you for being here and take it away.
So I get to be starting for some reason. I don't know. They voted me first. So basically, hi, we're going to be talking about the SPSAs. We're going to all introduce ourselves. We'll go over celebrations. So we'll start with celebrations. Then we'll highlight one academic focus goal, and then we'll finish with another goal that we're working on. Actually, I'm going to deviate from that. So deviate just a little bit, but also, yeah, I know I'm a rebel and I'm starting. I think that's why they put me first. Anyway, and we're just going to go right down the line, so you can kind of hear all of us at the same time. I know it's been a long week. So anyway, I'm Greg Landon, principal of BIS, and starting with BIS, I'm going to start talking about a little bit about the celebrations, and it really is connected to my why. Why are we doing what we're doing? And it really is goal number 4. And it really talks about building a positive culture, making connections. And that is so important in my mind to build the foundations. And so, I'm going to use a quote of one of the reasons why I do this and why I think it's so important for BIS right now. Harvard professor Sean Anker said, happiness fuels success, not the other way around. When we are positive, our brains become more engaged, creative, motivated, energetic, resilient, and productive at work. To me, that is the ultimate foundation. And so coming into this school, it was my wish and my hope that we would make this a positive culture and build whatever I could to make it that kind of experience. So as a result, and like a little bit more with my research, 2 other books come to mind. One is one that we just was recently or shared at the author. It was an author event that the PTA sponsored, Finding the Magic in Middle School. And Chris Baum, who's a friend, came and presented, and really his book was inspiring to me about finding out the why and continuing with this idea of why for the middle school. And the second one is a book by Dan and Chip Heath. One is a professor at Stanford and one back east. It was called The Power of Moments, and it's about creating peak moments and the idea of having those creating peak moments to have long-term memory. Keep kids learning from and keeping that connection to remember forever. So with that, what have we done? So putting simple things in protocols at lunch, so we have a nice and well-organized lunch, that we're supervising the area and they have opportunities to play. We have a ball cart, and we have, hopefully we'll have a ball shack that we can actually have kids have opportunities to have fun. We've been promoting clubs. Now we have over 15 clubs on campus that they regularly meet to feel like they belong and connected with. Today, my Rubik's Cube club was without me today, but we have over 15 members just for that one club. We highlight all the amazing things that they've done, the plays that we had, the concerts, the talent show that we just had, all of those spotlighting their strengths and what they're good at. And it's just that great feeling when you finish something. I remember I was helping the 8th graders with the talent show, these 8th grade boys who you'd never want to see, they never thought they'd be on the stage. We did this very goofy skit. And at the end, they just left. And they screamed how happy and proud they were. I was like, oh my God, look at these guys. And they're the cool kids, right? And they are just jumping over joy that they were part of the talent show. So creating that environment, I think, is really important. And, we also do creating community activities. We had our multilingual event with parents that our language ambassadors help promote. We have these PTA events. All of these things, I think, are really important for building that foundation of a positive culture and climate, and that's goal 4. So building on that foundation is the focus so that we can focus on learning. And so then my goal that we want to really highlight is goals 1 and 2, which really are based on data that we've done. We're area of focus, ELs, Latinos, and I say Latinos, not Latinx, and I'm Latino, so I can do that because I have an argument with whoever's arguing with what's Latinx versus Latino. So special education and students as well. And so right this year, the teachers have done some professional development under my leadership. And we've really focused on three things, and they're all part of the SPSA, which is UDL, which is the Universal Design for Learning. And really the key for that is the idea of designing to the edges. You're not designing to the middle, to the average. You're designing to the top and the bottom and everything that needs to happen in between. And so you're really looking at creativity to engage those students and to really help teachers create lessons that inspire not just to the main, but to everyone and at the edges. And so designing to the edges is like a key component of UDL. So we've been starting to do that. And we had 5 teachers go to one at the county office. We have SIP, which is coming in. I've been doing some stuff. We also have an expert in our own field. Ms. Bruzy has been presenting to others, and she's been presenting to our staff as well. So we're utilizing a lot of different resources to do Universal Design for Learning. The next is SIP, or co-teaching. And we've really been promoting co-teaching this year. We started from the basics, starting from the beginning. And I think we've done co-teaching in the past, but what's really made a difference now is they understand the why. And we've really had come in to talk about, why do we want co-teaching? What's the benefits of it? How does it look? What are different methods to be able to do it? And, thanks to Kristen, who's part of SIP, is the county office thing. Then thanks to the grant, I think Marla helped get this grant, and it's been wonderful. They've been coming regularly to work with my staff, or at least the staff who's doing co-teaching, and it's been amazing. So it's great for not just our special education students, but for all students. And that's what co-teaching really provides that. Now look with me. I have to open my, sorry for a second. Yeah, here we go. I know, but yeah, you do. Anyway, so with co-teaching, I think it's important because there's a lot of different methods that you can use to create, again, an environment that really helps kids who are struggling and gives not just one teacher, but 2 teachers in the same room to be able to provide tier 1 interventions, not tier 2, not tier 3, but tier 1 in the moment, and help them that way. So the last one that we've been working on is EL strategies. As you know, if you look at the data, the ELs have a lot to work on. And this is something that I've been really an expert at for many years. I've worked with UC Berkeley. I've worked with the County of Santa Clara. This is something I think is near and dear to my heart. And, strategies can be in a variety of methods. And we started with my staff really just talking about simple things that could start. We have this in-service that we did. And I said, there's 3 things that we could start with. Repeat, complete, elaborate. And I said, once you know that in the classroom and you're going to think about it, when you have students in the classroom who are at a very beginning level, you want them to repeat. So whatever you said, then have them repeat it, and have them repeat it either group or individually, just so that they can get that practice. Then when it gets a little bit more intense, then have them complete. They're getting better at it. Have them complete a sentence, not just a one-word answer. And most teachers have this in their toolbox, but they have to realize how important it is to develop oral language by doing stuff like this. And so complete the sentences. And then finally, when they're getting good at the completing sentences, then have them elaborate. Tell me more about that. That was good. Tell me more. And so we've really practiced a lot at the middle school level, so that this is something every kid, every teacher in every grade, in every subject area can work on. So these are some of the things that we're incorporating in the SPSA to really help and make a difference in the kids and get the scores to move. And so that is me.
Thanks, Greg. Hi, Jude Lawrence, Principal at Franklin. I'm going to highlight a couple of things from our SPSA, then talk about a couple of goals. So 2 highlights from our SPSA this year, one from goal 3, which is all around SEL. We had a focus this year on community responsibility and getting students more involved in campus life. So we've introduced the Falcon Force, the morning greeters or valet crew, 5th grade mentorship, buddies, cleanup crew, and playground coaches. It's having a hugely positive impact on culture. We're building new relationships across all the grade levels, and it's a cleaner, happier campus that we have. And there's a lot more pride amongst the Falcons around school. The other highlight is from goals 1 and 2, which are around academics. And with this year, we've introduced PLCs. We're in phase 2 and 3 of the PLC implementation at Franklin. Investigation was our first year, then this year is exploring and implementing. So this year, an hour per week has been dedicated to team talk amongst the grade levels. about student progress and the arc of instruction. So each day the teachers, one group of grade level of teachers starts 15 minutes early, and the first 45 minutes of instruction is taken by another teacher on campus, including me, to allow the teachers time to look at data, to look at students, to talk about students as a whole. So rather than thinking of just the students in the class, in your own classroom, you're thinking about the whole fifth grade or the whole third grade. And they're taking time to work on creating a guaranteed and viable curriculum in every classroom, allowing us to target interventions across the grade levels, making them way more impactful, and a real focus on data to inform instruction. So those are two big highlights at Franklin from our SPSA this year. I'll give you a quick rundown on goal 2, which is by June 2024, 100% of students will either meet the year-end grade level reading benchmark or demonstrate 1 year of reading skills progress as measured by Burlingame School District literacy benchmarks and other summative assessments. So in this one, we've made a lot of progress in terms of benchmarks. We met the part 1, between 84 and 86% of students are achieving benchmark. We have a work to do on the second part. Only 37% of those not meeting benchmarks are achieving a year's growth. So we are planning to attack that in our next year's SPSA and changing our goals. CAST data-wise, we didn't meet, but we don't have CAST data within that SPSA goal. We moved it to look at literacy benchmarks because as a school, we believe that the CAST data is great. It's good for looking at trends. It doesn't give us really the meat that we need to attack individual student needs. So we wanted to focus on benchmark data and all the summative assessments. So, but if we look at CAST data, we hit 81% of students meeting or exceeding the standards in CAST data. So we've got some work to do. What are we doing that we're continuing to do? Well, we're getting used to benchmark ELA now and discovering new materials every week and new resources, and the teachers are in their PLC time doing a lot of work looking at how they can get the curriculum to meet their students' needs. The PLC data focus is just wonderful, and they're taking DILS data, literacy benchmarks. We don't tend to look hugely at CAST when we're doing instruction in the classroom because it's out of date. And one of the big focuses that we've got at the moment is our English language learners. They are not meeting standards across the board, and whilst we would expect that, we have a lot of newcomers who can't be expected to meet the benchmarks immediately. We definitely know that that's an area that we need to focus on, and so every student that is below benchmark in our current instructional assessments is receiving small group instruction and instruction from our RTI teacher. We've got a great intervention team, which is part of our SPSA plan, who are working monthly with the specialist team and with the teachers to focus on the students who actually aren't meeting benchmarks and to make sure that we're putting everything into place for them that we can to get them where they need to be. And we have an instructional aide that works very closely with our RTI teacher, who is amazing, and I never want to lose her. Thank you. Please keep her with us. Some strategy changes we had this year. We moved our RTI focus from pull out intervention to push in intervention, and because we're looking in PLC at entire grade levels, we don't just have intervention in classes anymore. We have an intervention across the grade level, which means that during intervention time, all the students are being moved around between classrooms, between teachers. We're looking at data every week to see whether they need to move to a different group. So very, very responsive response to intervention this year. We've got phonics-based resources for lower grades, the CRLP training that the teachers have had this year has been hugely valuable. And along with the Hegarty and Foundations curriculum that we've been using alongside benchmark, that's giving more children access. I feel like I'm talking too much now. But another highlight is of our strategy changes this year is that we've got an after-school tutoring program using ELOP funding. So thank you to Katie for helping get that one on, get that program working. So that's targeted at our student groups who are in the groups where we need to reduce gaps, including EL and SED students. What do we need going forward? We need to look more at the adopted curriculum. We need to fill gaps in that is not meeting some of our students' needs. We need to look more at ELD program that meets the needs of our increasing numbers of newcomers. And this is district-wide, I think, not just at Franklin. So I'm sorry if I'm stepping on people's toes. I think. Yeah, okay, so I'll just keep going. Yeah. We need to relook at RTI, response to intervention. We've got way more demand that can be met with current resources and organisation. I think we need more training around tier 2 instruction for the general education teachers. And I think we need to be creative about the way that we look at RTI. I think what we're doing at Franklin and other schools looking at using resources to push in and to move students to where they need to be rather than pulling them is the direction that we need to go. I think behavioural challenges continue to cause loss of instructional time in the classroom, both for individual students and for classes as a whole. We've benefited greatly from support from our new general educational behaviourist, but there's, again, still more demand than supply. So we need to boost capacity amongst the general teaching population, but also think about how to address individual need. PD, we had fantastic CLRP training this year. I'd like to see that now implemented and extended to the upper grades. And I think we need to focus on listening comprehension. And the next thing we need to tackle is writing. And definitely at Franklin, that's a big need for us. And I think I'm way out of time and I haven't even got to my second goal, but I'd love to talk more about, I love talking about this stuff. So if you ever want to talk more about this stuff, I'm going to stop now and move on, but I'd love to continue to talk about stuff.
Hello, I'm Lisa Booth, I'm principal at Hoover. And mine's a little different. Every year at Hoover we have a theme, and it's based on a book. And our theme this year is Say Something by Peter Reynolds. It's about challenging students to express themselves in a variety of ways through art, music, writing, with words. I always give the example that if a child jumps out of the car in the morning and they have on sparkle shoes, they're saying something to you without a word, without a single word. You need to notice that. You need to understand what it is they want you to notice about them. This week at our school is a perfect example of this theme in practice. Our actual SEL goal is on our 2 adopted curriculums. However, I feel a yearly theme allows us to really put that into practice in a much more a way that benefits students greatly. So this week alone, we took our Say Something theme and combined it with the Great Kindness Challenge, beginning with Shine Bright Day, hence my bright orange sweater. The 4th and 5th grade class, I went to them, I said, hey, do you want to do it? They took it out. They did the entire thing themselves. They made the schedule, they made posters. They awesome posters. They were up on table. It was just crazy. They did a kindness card for the staff. They decorated it. They've been delivering things to them all week. Students came to me and they've always wanted to do a dance. So I said, okay, so we're going to do a dance. I thought, we'll practice together. And I was like, we have to practice. Sure enough, they had the greatest dance. They taught the entire school the dance today with music, drums, costumes. It was it was great. We had a class grade level school families today. We read the books about Mr. Hatch, and we wrote hearts and spoken about the school. We have lunchtime choice cards for students who are into sports or. And we added all kinds of stationery and bracelets. Kids are making them like crazy. And then that whole lunchtime is kind of an opportunity to share this whole theme. Thursday night, we're hosting our first science fair, actually, and it's called Say Something About Science. We have over 70 students and a team of parents presenting that Thursday night. And it's just going to be, everyone's just so excited about it. It's going to be a great night. So SEL to us is just that, social emotional learning. You have to learn these things. And I feel at Hoover, we put a ton of focus on that learning. And it's not perfect. And we have a lot of work to do. Certainly we have students who have a lot of learning to do in that area. But I feel like we give them a voice and a chance to express themselves and opportunities to do things. And we say, yes, you know, what do you say? And so now I have a whole stack of kids who want to do dances, but I'm like, okay, we'll figure that out. Maybe we have to do a talent show or something. So an academic goal is our math goal, and it focuses on the overall achievement in students according to CASP and iReady. Our goal for the upper grades was by June 2024, we'd reach 83% of students proficient or advanced in math. Looking at the data, we are over 90% of students in math, so it shows us that we need to challenge our students in math. Our upper grade teachers on the math committee felt that IM Math was a good program for doing this. It challenges students in new and different ways. If you ever visit a school, I challenge you to ask a school site to let you see the start of the lesson. When students are posed with or have to explore a problem and they're not necessarily given an answer, there's multiple solutions. It's nice to watch them talking about math and trying to figure it out. I am so confused when I go in there by the way that they are thinking. It's certainly not the way that I was taught math in any way. So I love it because you're just watching the kids and they're saying this. I'm looking at their papers like, how are you getting place value so clearly? Or how are you moving that? I just have to move this one way, right? Like the little thing. They are just moving and getting answers, and they're just thinking about math, thinking deeper about math. That's good enough for everyone. I mean, some people might say, you need to only teach the higher kids that way. It's a child who struggles with math can teach a child who's good at math. And so it's the teachers are really in that program at our school. Staff have appreciated the children. And they have adopted they've adapted the current math program a little bit. There's a little bit of an assessment issue with it. So they use exit tickets every day. They keep these packets and every day checking to see which kids are getting it, which kids are teaching, which challenge. So we've really seen some progress in math and we hope to continue in that area.
I am Laura Afshar. I helped write the SPSA at Lincoln. And so I'm going to reverse. I'm going to start with our academics. And I know we're supposed to pick one goal, but we shifted and aligned our goals more with the LCAP and stating our goals for growth. And while we have seen some consistency overall, we're really mindful of the differences that we see for our English language learners or students with disabilities and our Hispanic and Latinx students. And so we're really looking closely at those differences and how we can see movement and how it shifts from year to year. And it really is curious how it flip-flops sometimes in certain content areas, but we monitor closely. Some things, and I know this even came up with some questions around in our SARCs for differences in gender too with science and math for Lincoln. So some of the things that we are working on academically is that last year we began small group math intervention, and that was a really positive thing. It also sees a high increase in engagement for the students who are getting that support. We have 2 of our instructional aides that went through the Making Math Real training and are beginning to implement that with our RTI teacher having completed the training and also able to support them in that regard. There is a student-led STEM club that began. So that's really exciting to see students' excitement for science and math. And then we also had outreach this year that we engaged with that I'm pretty excited about. We have a BHS tutoring after school, and we also we are hoping to start after break. There is a neuroscience club from BHS. A student reached out with interest to begin. So all those elements, and also our ongoing partnerships with Iron Panthers. So as we see this, we see some of the gaps here. I'm hoping to build a sense of excitement and engagement for what math and science can look like as they progress further in their progress and what it can look like in their high school high school career. But really engaging that. The highlight, so those are a couple highlights I would say through our academic goals, but the goal that I wanted to share with a focus is our inclusion goal. And we are using our guidepost in that is our California Healthy Kids Survey. And I know there was a question around that data comes out at a larger scale early on. I like to wait for the charts that show the trends over time. So that's the piece that I'm looking for that I take with a slideshow that every single year I've been taking to my student counts or school site council. And sometimes that data and those charts trickle in a little bit later than the overarching piece. But as a part of monitoring our sense of belonging and also an answer to our attendance goals and increasing student engagement at school, we have an inclusion goal that has slowly grown over the last few years. So we use responsive classroom and have revisited that. That's been longstanding at Lincoln. Last year, we started doing social thinking for all of our students, which is typically a program that's speech and language pathologists use. But it's something that was really powerful coming back from COVID for students to have very concrete ways to engage socially with each other. We began last year 9 belonging events. So similar to what Lee shared, the kindness challenge is one of those elements. And then our big work this year that we're very, very excited about is we're working with San Francisco Coalition of Essential Small Schools in revising our vision and examining our current practices for greater inclusion and developing an inclusion plan. So looking at equity training. So we're currently doing equity training with our staff monthly. And so that is really a huge step in researching that and building that relationship. And so those are our areas of focus and our highlights. Thank you.
The only one who kept it short, like we said. Just saying.
I have like 6 presentations today.
All right. Good evening. McKinley has had a great school year to date. I am really proud of all the work our teachers and our students have been doing. We've grown from 550 students to 575 students this year with the addition of our TK class on campus. They have been a fantastic addition to our campus, capturing the attention and hearts of our oldest kids who line up every single lunch to high five and fist bump the TKers as they leave their yard they have to cross over our yard, the big kids' yard. So when I'm out there for the second lunch, they literally are sitting there, lines of big 4th and 5th graders waiting for the TKs to trickle through, and they high five and fist bump them as they go to class. The adults are not participating. We're all lined up. It's like a parade every day for TK. But they have really captured the hearts, and it's just really sweet to see it. The kindergartners don't capture their hearts that way, but for some reason, these TKers have really done it. So it's very sweet. In addition, our volunteer wall has grown to 293 cleared volunteers as of today. As of last week, we have more. I don't have a room for more. Not sure what to do when we get more, but we have 293 cleared volunteers. I will echo what a couple of you have said. Through these volunteers, also, our PTA last year purchased and sponsored our STEM carts. And so instead of having what used to be our makerspace, too hard to get 24 classes in there into a small dark room anyway. They purchased 5 carts, brought them out, and so we have them in 5 upstairs and downstairs in the annex, 2 upstairs and 1 downstairs in our main building for classes to use, and therefore our volunteers who have found a new way to volunteer. If they're not a lunch person, if they're not an art person, they found a new avenue to be a volunteer in, and so that's brought in more parents who are interested in how to support STEM in classrooms. Along with that, we have our garden club. Our garden parents who come out and do outdoor learning in our garden space, which apparently this rain has not drowned it out. It is as green as I've ever seen it, and with a lot less gophers. They've gotten drowned out maybe, but it is looking amazing, and the kids enjoy, and our youngest students are out there almost weekly with parents doing some outdoor learning. So that's been a real highlight too, that we can focus on this year. One academic area of focus is language arts. We are aware of the work we need to do with our English learners and our students with disabilities. Last year, we were without a certificated resource teacher until March. We had a fabulous substitute, but we know that nothing replaces an experienced, educated specialist. We are fortunate to have that now with Mr. Steve Bartow in place, along with our RTI teacher and instructional aides. We have built a team of support. Through student of concern meetings, SSTs, parent conferences, data chats, we work to identify every student in need, identify whether they are best supported through tier 1, 2, or 3A, and maybe 3B, support and progress monitored throughout the year. Our scores show greatest needs, our scores on our CASP showed our greatest need in listening and writing. Throughout their work with Jeff Swires, our upper grade teachers continue to work on authentic conversations while our younger grade teachers, almost said younger teachers, or upper grade teachers would not have appreciated that. Our younger grade teachers continue their work with CRLP to build our readers and writers. We use our screeners to help identify specific areas of need to help build our small groups because we know those are essential within classrooms. With half of our students having Spanish as their language of instruction, we know that their English skills take time to refine. Increase in scores are usually trends made from year to year. If you look 3rd to 4th or 4th to 5th, there are a couple of, but you will see that especially because of English, their scores as they are getting more English. They start obviously in kindergarten and 1st grade with 90% of their day in Spanish, moving up to 20% in 2nd grade, and it follows that 20, 30, 40, 50, 50, 50 in 5th grade. The more exposure and the more direct teaching in English, the more you see their CASP scores starting to shine. We know the more support personnel we have, the more targeted our support can be across more students. One of the things I know that we need and we're working on is more targeted training for EL support, both with not just our teachers, but with our aides. Our bilingual aides, especially who are working with some of our newcomers to really be able to support them, to get them more comfortable speaking, reading, and writing faster. We, like all of my colleagues here, are seeing an influx of newcomers. And outside of Spanish, right? They're not just Spanish speaking, although that was this week and last week's crew, but Turkish and Portuguese and Russian, to name just a couple. Beyond academics, we know that McKinley's attendance continues to be an area of work and need that we are working on. We are in communication with families of students who are considered truant through emails and letters, phone calls, conversations, Zoom. We are working to get students to school regularly and on time. We are also educating parents about independent studies when necessary and focusing on the importance of in-school instruction to avoid mid-year vacations because we know that nothing is going to replace your teacher in your classroom. And no instruction or no assignment they give while you're gone will replace that. At the same time, we are working on community. We are hoping through communication, events, and outreach, we can strive to bring in students each day. Our PTA has started an outreach program with every new family. They are assigning a PTA member to reach out to them, and especially for those of our families that do not speak English, they are assigning them a veteran family with the same language so that they can be a buddy family, not to be their own best friends, to help especially our newcomers understanding school, whether it be McKinley or just the American school system. And like, for instance, the Bulldog Ball doesn't even translate very well. So I kept having a good family dance because I wanted people to understand we're not bowling or doing sports. And so understanding that and having that outreach in any language, along with our communication, the many of us that use SMORE that can be translated into whatever you need, having a parent be able to welcome you in your language, your home language, we found has been really special. Thanks to our PTA, as of 2 weeks ago, we now have Playworks to address safe, inclusive, and healthy play, welcoming more students to play games, such as Foursquare, the way you all remember it being played, because I now recognize it again, and flag football more than ever before, with more girls taking over that flag football game than I've seen in my last 3 years. So it's been a lot of fun to watch that happen as well. And that's McKinley.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. I'm Matt Paveo. I'm the principal at Roosevelt Elementary School. Some of the positive things that are going on in our school. I've been really happy, actually, over the last few years about how the community is coming back together on the site. A lot more parent involvement, a lot more engagement in our activities, a lot more volunteering at the site. We've also really taken another step forward in our innovative practices. We're beginning to launch a full curriculum that we've developed around creativity and design thinking. I'm in the early stages of that, but it's very exciting. We have Maker Madness still going strong. This Thursday, if you want to come by the school, we're doing our prosthetic, the kids are designing prosthetic legs that they're trying out. They have kind of some challenges to do around it. This will be the 10th year of Teddy Talks. We're very excited about that. And I should have left this to the last, but we're winning the Golden Bell this year for our translation group, our kids that translate our newsletters in their home languages. Very exciting stuff going on at Roosevelt. The goals that I'm going to focus on today are academic, based on data. One area of focus in our SPSA is the progress of our ELL population. The population actually has steadily grown in our school. Currently, we're at 22.8% of our learners classified as ELL. In the 23-24 school year, we have addressed this in multiple ways. The first is a focus on instructional practices, of course, within the classroom. Our teachers, through our PLC process, have identified exact level and need of all our students and have been able to address this through direct instruction within the classroom. We've also created time, much as Principal Lawrence was saying, we've created time in the schedule for Tier 2 instruction within the classroom. We call this universal access time. During this time, our teachers partner with our RTI teacher and their aide to deliver instruction within the classroom that gives students extra time to push ahead. It does not take the place of any curricular instruction. It's more interventions, both for kids who are already getting it, pushing them further, and kids that need a little extra time to catch up. But it's definitely pushing. We have teacher teams that meet periodically to research and discuss best practices around ELL and then share that back with the staff. Our RTI aide works tirelessly in the morning from 8 to 8:30 and then after school from 3:15 to 4, working with targeted students on reading using iReady. And our parent groups have actually started after school enrichment clubs that we have targeted invitations for more practice in English and social opportunities for our students. What we are still trying is in 2022-23, we paid for a one-on-one ELL support using Title I funds. The job of this person was not only to provide extra reading support for newcomer students, but also provide outreach to parents in our community. Through this program, we were able to increase attendance at all Roosevelt events, provide ways for families to get scholarships through Parks and Rec, and to sign up parents for English lessons through the county. We'll be looking to replicate this program as soon as with future funds. Using the ELAP, someone spoke about the ELAP. Using ELAP funds, we are also attempting to provide experiences in music along with reading through field trips, music lessons, and reading instructions. This program has been approved to just start soon. We still have a few parts to iron out. Very excited about that. Our results, so how it's been going. While we are working to improve our CAS data, I don't know that if they provide an accurate depiction of our work, of our staff and community around our ELL students. Even with our best efforts, taking our population, many of whom are newcomers from basic to standard, difficult. But what I can tell you, and what our data proves, is that all this is really working well. Our examples are our successes across grade levels. But in the interest of time, I'm just going to share a few. Our third grade, for example, is using iReady as a guide. And in a classroom, actually a grade level that has a classroom that has 12 different languages spoken in it. Their ELL population has grown 154% in the first half of the year. Our fifth grade, using the same measure, has grown 165% for the EL students. Many of these students have made growth from kindergarten to second grade level, all of which, especially the fifth grade, but we'll have limited chance of making grade level using the CAS data. But I couldn't be more prouder of the work of the whole community to make sure every student is growing. Our growth levels are through the roof. Going forward, in light of all this, I would like to request that we as a district take a deep look at the resources available on the ground to help with this growing population of students at Roosevelt, like all the other schools, coupled with our growing socioeconomically disadvantaged population. 26%. The needs of Roosevelt seem to be increasing. At the same time, the resolve of our staff and inclusive, the resolve of our staff and inclusive problems of the nature of our community is one. New mic, put that on it. Committed. I couldn't be prouder of the work. So I would also request that we look into assessment that is global, easy to use, standards-based, and provides quick feedback around growth. The iReady program has been helpful, but it isn't perfect, and we only have access through Title I fund. It's not across the sites, at least in the upper grades, but does provide us with a quick and better idea of the growth of our students. So the goal, let's get to it. With all that being said, the goal of the Roosevelt in the area of ELL population is to see 135% increase, which is 7.5% more than last year. In language arts scores across the board, using iReady as a major measure. We also plan to make 20-point growth in our Latinx student groups. Sorry, Latinx. School climate and SEL goal. Through our design process, our students will have now become better stewards of their communities. So I think a couple of other schools are doing the same thing, which is really cool, I think. Students will learn to use a simple design process to work through 4 school-wide challenges throughout the year. And by 2024, each classroom will allocate 1 hour a week to work on a lesson designed to work through future-ready skills. These lessons will be created by the site and will center around creativity. This is the implementation of the new curriculum I'm talking about, around creativity, collaboration, critical thinking, and communication. Specifically, we will target our Latinx student groups and provide all the support they will need to participate. And so how we do this, each grade level has taken on a community activity and applied our design process to solving a problem they have identified. And our parents have, like I said, created and staffed after-school clubs. And we will continue to have class design challenges.
Can your next challenge be a new mic for us?
Yeah.
Hello, everyone. My name is Alyssa Jaramillo. This is my first year as principal at Washington, and it has just been a really wonderful experience. I have to say that first and foremost, when it's your first year as a principal at a new school, it's really important to work on building and fostering relationships with your school community, with the students, with the families, with the teachers and the staff at your school, with the fellow administrators. And that has been a really easy process so far at Washington. I have come to know my students really well. I know like many of them just come up in the morning. They're so excited to be there. They come in at lunchtime and they're ready to play. They're excited to be there. And I think that so much of that is because of the special staff that we have at our school and then the incredible community support that we have. One of our lovely members has been at lunch with me at least twice this week, I believe. And that's not uncommon for a lot of the families at our school. I feel very lucky to be at Washington, and I'll try to keep it a little short, although I'm noticing none of us quite did. But one of my really big goals this year, and this was through staff feedback, and it's embedded in our third goal for the SPSA, is to really work on our PBS framework at my school. We have what's called the Wildcat Way, which is our school expectations. And it is something that needed to really be reinforced and retaught and reinvigorated at my school. And some of the ways that I've been doing that so far is really trying to work with my staff on understanding what our common expectations are. And we're going to really work next year on developing lessons and creating structured times of when we are teaching those expectations in really concrete ways. And what I've been doing this year is every week we have an assembly, and it's on Friday afternoons. It's a fun way to end the week. We have celebrations of birthdays and Wildcat Way to Go award winners. We review, something that may need to be practiced for the next week and kind of set it as a goal. We celebrate all the wonderful things that are happening. Often there are student presentations, and even PTA or Dad's Club members will come and talk about fun events that are coming up. It's just a really great way to build our school climate into a more positive place. Another thing that I have started is called Restorative Recess, which is on Fridays. I open up a classroom and I lead structured game time for kids. They can either be referred by teachers or me. Maybe we talked at some point that week. And it's also just open to all students who would like to come participate. And typically I do an all call before recess starts. I let them know what the game is that week and they're invited to come. And it's a good way for kids to practice these school expectations in a structured, fun way, because just talking about a rule outside of context isn't very helpful. So when I was looking at my SPSA with my school site council, it's a big document to look at for the first time with a new group of people that you're building relationships with. And my school site council gave me some really candid feedback that we really want to restructure it for next year. They agree that CASP data is not a true snapshot of what our students are doing. And we really hope to be able to, with the new LCAP, really try to mirror what those LCAP goals are in our SPSA, and then also use more local assessments to be able to show what our students are actually doing well. Some of the things that we did notice, though, as we were going through the SPSA, there were some interesting patterns, and it was even deepened more so when we looked at our SART, which I was grateful to have that data to be able to just kind of really guide what I'm going to be doing for the rest of the year going into next year. Something that we did notice is there were interesting year to year, we would see certain grades have this huge jump in scores. But we noticed it was actually because there was a cohort that was just scoring a little bit lower each year. So, when they're in third grade, all of a sudden the next year, the third grade scores went up really high. Next year, the fourth grade. And it was just an interesting thing that showed us, once again, we really want to go back to local assessment data. But despite that, something that some of us have seen is we do have certain student groups that we really have an opportunity to look at ways we can grow to support them. And that does include our Hispanic students, or Latino, Latinx, whatever you want to call them, our students whose families are low socioeconomic status, and our students who are learning and acquiring English as a second language or as an additional language. But something that was really eye-opening in the start was to see that our English language, our ELA data really showed a big growth discrepancy between males and female students. Our male group was over 20% less than our female students. And that was something that in the SPSA, with the way that that data is structured, we weren't able to see as easily. And so looking at those trends in the data, looking at those additional data points, it's something that I really am excited to work with my staff to address. We have a lot of work to do to be able to get growth, not only with these students, but with all of our students. And we luckily just finished getting our winter benchmark assessment data for literacy. And between that, in tandem with all of our CAS data, I look forward to working with my staff to determine what the next best steps would be. And, some of the processes that we're going to be using to address that. There we go. We'll be through our SOCs and SSTs. We hold them about every 6 weeks at my site to discuss how we can best support students as individuals and to help them grow not only academically, but socio-emotionally as well, and behaviorally. I'm really excited, not next week because it's a week off, but the week after on Tuesday, I'm going to be meeting with my kindergarten, first and second grade teachers with my RTI specialist, Ms. Fordham. And we're going to be really looking at the data that we collected from the DIBELS that was done in this winter, and having them bring all of their benchmark data as well that they just completed, and really trying to look for trends and for groups that we know need additional support. And that will be done the day before they have the CRLP training that Katie has worked very hard to get us ready for on the 28th. So I'm excited to do some of that pre-work to make sure that they have that data all ready to go and bring with them the next day at the PD. Something that I'm working on with my staff, both at our meetings, through my observations and evaluation meetings, is really trying to reflect on our Tier 1 instructional strategies. We want to make sure that we're meeting our students where they're at and helping them grow a full year's worth of growth academically, behaviorally, and social emotionally. And it takes a lot of work to do that. Something that I also am doing, because I have quite a few new teachers at Washington this year, is I've recently implemented every other week. I meet for an hour. It's an open office time with my new teachers, and it's a time for me to be able to prep them for things that are coming up. So for instance, before conference week, we sat down, we talked about, how to be prepared for them, what to discuss in them, things like that. I have been able to really spend time with them because, when you're new, sometimes you're in over your head and it's hard to be able to go and approach a principal who always seems busy, because we are, and to be able to ask questions. So opening that door and letting them know we have a scheduled time, you can come with any questions you want. I'll also have an agenda of some things to talk about, has been really helpful for those staff members. Today, although it was not scheduled, but we were very excited after the math annex training that 3rd through 5th got today. I met with a 4th grade teacher and we were looking at her assessment data, and I was planning with her tomorrow on how she's already going to start implementing the next steps, because it's really cool, those lessons that they just are giving them. Like, here's how they got the wrong answer, talk with the students about why they got that wrong answer, talk about how they got the new one or the correct one, what new ways can you figure out to teach it. She was so excited. She barely has a voice though, so we'll see if she'll be able to do it tomorrow. She was losing it today. It is, but she invited me to the class. So I'm going to go in tomorrow morning at about 10:45 and I'm going to see how it goes. And then we're going to talk about it later at our new teacher meeting later that day. So I'm really excited to keep working with my staff, and I've been talking with our instructional aides who are wonderful. I can't remember who said it, but please, we love them so much. They do such amazing work with our students. I'm going to meet with them after I meet with the K-2 team. And when I am better able to see all of our math data and things like that, and really try to rekey their schedules to make sure that these students that we're seeing have these needs are being better addressed, and making sure we're dedicating the time and materials needed to them. That was a lot. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any questions?
You want to start?
Sure. Well, first, thank you for all of that information. I just want to start by saying I totally agree and understand that CAST data is just a quick overview of what's perhaps happening academically. And I even had a conversation with a fellow trustee about, asking as a teacher, how much do you put into this data? And, my answer was exactly what I heard all of you saying tonight. It's an opportunity to see a trend, to poke some holes at what we see happening, and then to tackle that. It doesn't mean this is it. This is how BIS is doing. Here we go. Okay, you're either good or you're not. It's really, here's what we see, and let's dig deeper on that, and let's analyze. And sometimes there is room for growth, and sometimes perhaps it's incorrect. So I appreciate that you were open and vulnerable enough to come here tonight and share some of the areas where you do see gaps in learning. And so many of you had really great ideas about how to tackle them, and what you're doing and what you're already doing and what you plan to do. I think we do have a lot of work, obviously, specifically in the areas of math and science, and some of our gender gaps, and with our Latinx community. And it sounds like you have some really great plans in place. And now I sound like you guys. I took like 10 pages of notes, and I won't go through all of them, but I feel like what I heard overall was that you are needing a newcomer curriculum. I felt like what I heard was there was a lot of innovative things happening with your RTI, some pushing in, which I think is really beneficial for all students. And I think it's a creative way to use that position. Gosh, Alyssa, I read in your newsletter about the restorative recess, and I meant to ask about that. So I'm glad that you brought it up. I think it's a great way, especially with some of the social emotional behaviors that we're seeing, just how to teach kids to play with each other when they're out on the playground, and they've had a little bit of a gap in how to navigate a big space with a lot of kids, especially if you are new to the school. I wanted to hear, and I think you sort of got to it, but what is ZIP?
Thank you. I didn't want to hold section. The scary part is I don't know. It stands for something, and I think Marla can say more, but what is it? Supporting inclusive practices through El Dorado County Office of Education. They have been the forefront of inclusive practices, and they've been working with our district for years. And so I really capitalized this year on trainings with them for the co-teaching, and really getting to understand the why and what can we do and be really more effective with co-teaching.
Great. I've had 2 kids in the co-taught program, and it's been a really beneficial thing for both of them. And Lincoln, I wrote, again, I just appreciate acknowledging really tough data and plans to tackle it. And I really look forward to having further conversations about math and science, and how we can continue to grow in those areas.
Well, I guess I will first of all just echo seeing you all here, and this is my first experience as a trustee on the board, so you'll have to excuse like some of my like ignorance with the acronyms, to be honest. But I think just seeing you all here and the sort of tightness bond that you obviously have is really awesome. You've all independently come and done sort of little snippets of presentations, so I've seen all of you, but to see you all here in a room like that, it's really, I think, a testament to what this district can do. And what I heard kind of across the board, again, was all these really creative ideas, like having VHS kids come in. I think somebody said neuroscience, which was really just like, wow. But
She emailed us. Yes.
but I think the point is really, and I know there was some talk about sort of like teaching towards the edges, but it sounds like between all of these different ideas, maybe there is kind of an awesome opportunity to pool those different resources and see what's working. And maybe you are already doing that, but I think it helps for the board and for whoever is listening in the community to really see that, because this is pretty good, right? In terms of all of these different ideas. And when there becomes sort of a standardization across the different schools, I think that will really go a long way in terms of like setting parent expectations as well. But I think it's really awesome. And I know there is work to do in it sounds like pervasively, right? In EL and math and science. So I think and obviously you've all set your goals, but I think if there is a specific, what can we do or what can the district do to be supportive in helping you achieve those goals, that's also part of the conversation.
Can I just say, I really echo what you just said, because listening to all of you, I already knew I liked these guys, but they have so many interesting, again, we really should have time to talk like this, because we have some great ideas we can exchange. I want to know more about PLCs. I want to know, I think you say it really well. It's a very good opportunity.
So I really like, Greg, what you said about happiness leads to success rather than the other way around. I think that's totally true. And what I really took out of all your SPSAs was the family engagement, student engagement piece that you're really trying to emphasize. Every year when we go to CSBA, there are always workshops on how to increase family and student engagement, and it's really hard nut to crack. And tonight and reading your SPSAs, it really seemed like you were latching on to some really interesting things that are already showing up with increase in, what'd you say? You had 293 volunteers. I mean, that's insane. Like, I really was like, wow, that's so great. Because even, pre-COVID, we were having trouble with parents volunteering. I don't know what was happening, but it seemed to be on the decline. So that is just great news. And so if the parents are excited about school, the kids feel that too, and vice versa. In Matt SPSA, you mentioned that you're thinking about adding books to your library that are maybe more interesting to the kids. Yeah. And I mean, and that might mean not really academic kind of books, but just a book that it's going to get the kid in that room, right? Which is amazing. And I'm wondering, did you survey the kids to see which books? Oh, okay. I don't even know what that book is. Dog Man?
Literally a dog with a man's head.
It's a dog. It's a man with a dog body. Oh.
Or it's a man with a dog head.
Oh, it's a man with a dog head. Oh. Oh, okay. I think that's like, past my time since my kids are old. Oh, but yeah, so I just loved all that about the family and student engagement. I think that's a huge piece. That's on par even for me for the academics. So thanks for all that effort.
No, thank you for being here. I'm also losing my voice, so can't do. I know you're all disappointed, but it's great to see you all here together. It's like seeing one of those pictures of all the living presidents in one place. There they are. They're great. I did have a question. Did you, it occurred to me as you were speaking, you all share very similar goals about Latino students, Hispanic students, socioeconomic status students. And we do have the ELOP programs that you talked about, and we're going to hear more about summer school and other extended learning opportunities tonight. Are you all satisfied with how those programs are going in terms of how they meet the goals you have for yourself?
I know from my, I mean, it took a while to get it. It took a while to get it off the ground, I think, for some of us, but I was excited at the number of teachers that were interested in participating. That I think was the most exciting piece, because I think teachers giving their time after school 3 days a week was a huge tell. Being able to invite families. One parent went dramatically looking for their child yesterday to find them, and they're going to go on there. Turns out they didn't remember that they were in ELOP for the first time yesterday, and they're in their class because they had started yesterday on Monday. So I think the parents being appreciative of what we're offering and being able to give their children, and some of them it's with their same teacher, for some it's a very different teacher or a past teacher, but being able to offer them different opportunities. I am happy that we have it. Certainly wish we had started sooner than, the week before February break for us. And so I think having more knowledge about this and being able to move forward, we can plan, I would say for next year, be able to have a plan maybe at the end of this year, what that could look like, or in August. I'd like to see more of it. And now that we're doing it, also vary what it could look like. I think learning, right, this is like ground zero. What does it look like this year? Build from where we're going. We have certainly a lot of students at McKinley that were invited, that qualified and were invited. So being able to, I want to see how attendance goes, what it looks like over time, not just the first few days. And I think make a determination once over time. So I think after, at the end of the first round or second, whatever it looks like, be able to see its successes and then be able to analyze that and move forward from there.
Oh, I was just say, I think some of the summer programming that happened last year was really good. I think not only did it target the right thing, but also it's my I should have a list of it for me. I think it really had some teachers trying new things and then innovation on that end. I think Joy's right. We're kind of at the very beginning of it, and it's very exciting. And I think the things we're coming up with now are getting more and more exciting. So I think it's on the right trajectory.
I also want to say that our teachers are very enthusiastic. I think Katie and I did something upwards of 24 interviews for teachers that wanted to apply for our February intercession program. So, and I've taught in different districts. Sometimes you really don't have that engagement. You're really stretching to get the teachers involved. So there's a lot of positive support and momentum within our teaching teams, which I think is wonderful and encouraging.
I think the other thing that I'm really appreciating is that we're not just having an academic focus. We're trying to look at the experience gap as well as the academic gap, achievement gap. So we're doing music, and we're doing art, and we're doing dance and theatre. And I think those things are as important, as you were saying, Florence. SEL is really important, but so is developing the whole child and trying to bridge that experience gap with the kids. So I appreciate that.
One more. Probably finishing just about now is the mariachi program. And so having it on my campus, I've been able to walk in and experience a group of people. And, I haven't been able to, I wasn't there last week to start. I think I'll be there next Tuesday for the parent engagement piece, which is next Tuesday, the 26th. I'm making this up, 27th, whatever that Tuesday is, 27th, sorry. Being able to see that and have that be a different experience, because while our students do get band, our 4th and 5th graders, but they also have opportunities for different instruments and a different opportunity, and to see kids of mixed grade levels be on our campus and enjoying and having homework help and dinner and support, and then music time. I think that's just another piece. And what I love about that program is it's across the board. It's district. So it's not just McKinley kids as much. They are a lot of McKinley kids. But outside of that, it's also seeing some of our alumni come back. But being able to see students from across our district come together, I think is a great program as well, because, they are going to end up together all at BIS. So being able to see the elementary kids come together and the BIS kids, some of them just also as role models in that program, has been a special, and our parents, I know, are so appreciative and so excited about that program. So that's another one, that I think being able to offer that, a program like that has been a tremendous success.
I was going to ask about chronic absenteeism because it seems to correlate a lot of, no surprise, with some of the disparities in test scores and outcomes and so forth. Probably drives a lot of it too, because if they're not in the class, they can't take advantage of all the great things that you all are doing. So your teachers are doing. So we don't have to go into a lengthy discussion, but I'd love to know if is it obviously somewhat COVID related, but is it getting better? Are there things that we can do, the board can do, or at the district we can do to try to bring in some of those kids that are missing so much school? And it's like the percentages are very kind of shocking within groups.
Right. And so it's still an issue. I was reading something about this just today. That's why I grabbed the mic. That out of Harvard, that the person was asked this question, and the answer was an interesting answer, and it is somewhere where the board can jump in as well, that it needs to be a whole community effort, meaning there needs to be promotion from the mayor, from the city organizations. This needs to be a community, something that's important to the community. Certainly, we have put it in newsletters. We are out there. I went to somebody's house 6 times last year, which was a record. But at a certain point, got limited support from other community entities trying to help. And certainly, they have other priorities, but or at least this is more of a priority to me than them. And I think that's where if we really want to attack this, and I do, and I think we all do, it needs to be full community, and whatever that looks like. But I thought that was very fascinating. I know we all take it on ourselves, I think, a lot, and I thought, oh, no, this has to be a priority for our community. Like, kids go to school.
Would you be up for sending that to us to read?
Yeah, for sure. Actually, I tomorrow have it.
Yeah, I can send it.
I think one of the things that we've seen is, I think with probably that many companies are saying, right, is the desire for remote work. I think our families are wanting remote school. Not so much that they want us to be back, they want to do synchronous work online again, but that their bug to travel and to travel outside of our calendar is killing us. And I mean, it's a double-edged sword on marketing independent studies, right? Like, sure, go ahead, take vacation. Here's a packet. Be gone, miss instruction. It's never going to be the same. And as you said, Doug, they're missing, and as I said in mine, you're missing what your teacher is teaching. No packet they're going to give you is going to replicate what's being taught in class. You're not going to get your biography T support for your essay. You're not going to get to have a STEM project in a packet or via Raz Kids or anything else online. That's not going to be genuine teaching that we are so proud of our teachers for giving it each and every day. I hate promoting independent studies, but at the same time, I also need to, right? Like, there's that. Okay, go ahead if you're going to go. And I think we did a great job on telling people, stay home if you're sick. And now they're like, gotta stay home. And we're like, wait, there's a balance. Like they used to, some of them still send them no matter what. And we are all up here struggling for voices because of it. And then the others that stay home more often than we can keep track of. And so I think it is that balance, it's that education, right? Community support of how important being in school is from everywhere, right? From the mayor, from the community, from the school board, from every which way, not just their principals and their teachers, because I did not have 6. I had 2 visits to one. And going out and visiting, and sometimes sometimes it helps, sometimes it doesn't. The phone calls, the conversations, greeting kids at the door. I can watch 40 kids walk in late on any given day from McKinley every single day. Sometimes at 8:31, sometimes at 8:46, 9:30. I was having breakfast. And so how do we give them that urgency that we feel to bring them to school every day at the time we want them there? 8:31 is great, right? I mean, it's late, it's here, but there's a time, and it's different when for some reason they're much better about it at BIS when they hear, maybe not, a little bit better, right? They get themselves to school, right? And so we do need help. We do need support. We need support and the messaging. Yeah.
I promise, Greg, I'll hand it to you next. I just wanted to add on, and it's kind of a bridge of the two questions from Doug and Dan. And it's something that I have been having a lot of conferences, especially last week, with some of my students whose attendance has definitely been showing up as chronic absenteeism or tardies. And I noticed overwhelmingly that a lot of the conferences that I attended to talk about attendance were students that also receive specialized education services, typically through RTI. And it was a really big part of the conversation of, you know, when you have 17 absences, granted, it seems like a lot of them are excused sick or getting doctor's notes, but not all of them. It's very tricky to be able to expect a student who's not there to be able to learn what's happening in the class. It also is proven that poor attendance and arriving late truly affects their well-being emotionally at school. And some of the conversations that I've had have included families who have students at the high school, at the middle school, that are having a tricky time scheduling who to drop off when and where. And we have been very lucky recently that our ELOP funds have been giving opportunities for our students to join the Champions program after school. But some of these families who would be on that same list being invited to the after school program and have recently started and have been enjoying it at my site, it would be wonderful if it were possible to also offer it before school. I know of quite a few families that said that if that were available, if they could afford that, it would be really helpful for them to get to school on time. And that would be more for the tardiness than for the absences. But it was just something I wanted to share. And now, Greg, I promise, here you go.
Okay, it is. Okay. So it's interesting because just recently we invited Smushed, Don Scatena, who does the SARB and SARTs at the high school level. Because I totally agree. It's about community and getting everybody involved. He's been an expert in this field of high school for years. And just to listen to him, what I learned, and it was a kind of a very paradigm shift for my group, the people who we meet regularly. We do have a social worker that comes visits to talk about this and helps us. Her name is Chelsea Chan. She's from the district, from the high school district. She meets regularly with our care team. We've changed our group to become a care team where it's, really talking about how to best service in any way possible. And one of the things that he talked about was, Don goes, there's not a lot of sticks. It needs to be about the carrots, it needs to be about incentive, it needs to be about changing what they're doing and try to figure it out. It's an individual, personalized experience to get them to change. And that's a lot sometimes. And so community is going to be important. One example I heard, or I'm going to tell is, just recently I started going to the meetings because I wanted to transform this from a absent meeting to a care team meeting. So I was saying, hey, this is what we're going to do. And we started bringing up this one student. And they said, oh, it's just been terrible. He comes in late. It's just never comes in on time. And it's like, so I decided, hey, I'm going to meet with him. So I met with him. I bought him an alarm because literally he told me that he doesn't wake up. And I said, he has been still 8:30, 1:30 on time. For us, it's 8:35. But he gets in advisory a little late, but he's at every class. Now he's not coming in at noon and 10, 11 o'clock or coming for lunch. He's actually coming in on time. So it's going to depend, and it's going to be a lot of resources, and there's no one right answer, but it's got to be. Thank you.
A 2-second one, TK and K, it's a lot of changing their mindset. When you're in preschool, you go, and if you stay home, no big deal. For TK and K, we have to change the mindset around that. That's a huge.
Thank you. Any more questions? Great. Well, thank you again. That was fantastic. And I know you waited a long time for that to come up on the agenda, and I appreciate you all the good work that you do. Thank you.
We have to vote.
Oh, and this is a voting item. So could we have a motion to approve the SPSA?
I'll move to approve BSD school plan for student achievement.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
5-0. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Right, item 17E, Justice, Equity, Diversity, Inclusion Update, Absenteeism and Truancy.
Prophetic.
Sorry. We tried this one first, it sounded funky, so then we went with that one. You want to try this one now?
I just wanted to make sure.
You want to try this one this time? That's okay.
Thank you.
Oh, that's a wired.
Hello again.
Next.
So yeah, actually that was a great segue from the SPSAs to this presentation, which is about absenteeism and truancy. And I think what's really interesting about this is really that we heard from the people doing the work on the ground, right? So I'm looking at this from here at the district office, in terms of the data. So it's really great to get the perspectives of the people who are doing work. So just really quickly, I'll just throw this up here. This is just defining the different terms that we use in this in the state. Just really quickly, the main difference between absenteeism versus truancy is absenteeism is truancy is really unexcused absences, and excuses are defined by Ed Code as well as our board policy. And I've linked some resources down there if anyone's interested in taking a look at that. But just an important note, the state measures absenteeism or chronic absenteeism as part of the dashboard, not truancy. But we thought it was important to look at both. So this year we were identified for differentiated assistance based on our absenteeism data from last year on the California school dashboard. You'll notice that basically most of our student groups are identified. So it is a widespread issue. And just to clarify, differentiated assistance, because we did talk about ATSI before, differentiated assistance is for the district as a whole. ATSI is for specific schools. So any questions about this? All right, so one of the requests was to take a look at CAS data as it relates to attendance. And I found that a little bit difficult to do. One of the reasons being that we have CAS data from last year and we have our attendance data from this year. So I tried my best here to kind of correlate the two. Really what we're looking at here is in the blue, we're looking at the area under the curve here. So basically the blue. So if we look at kind of how big the area is for area 4. So we have our 4 different achievement levels for CAS, 1, 2, 3, and 4. So really what you're seeing here is if you look at achievement level 2, that goes all the way up to almost 50%. So we have students in that who scored a 2 last year who missed that much school last year, essentially.
What does 1, 2, 3, and 4 stand for? 1 is bad, 4 is good.
Yeah. So yeah, CASP you can get a 1, 2, 3, or 4. Yeah.
So in other words, are you saying that the more absenteeism, the lesser the score?
So yeah, so the red line is basically the trend line. So what we're looking at here is there is a correlation between students attending school and scoring higher on state testing.
Yeah, that's what
yeah. So that's the general trend. The goal here wasn't to really drill down and get too specific, but it was just to show an overall trend of when students don't show up, they're not doing as well in state testing, and we'll see a stronger correlation with math than we do with ELA. So I'll show that now, just so we can kind of see the comparison. So we can see a stronger correlation there. We can see the performance level 1 has a much greater amount of students in it, so there's a stronger correlation than that in this ELA for us. So I know this is kind of a different way of looking at it, but it's just kind of the best way I could figure out to kind of show the correlation between the two data sets. So this is this is the different trend lines for our different race and ethnicity groups. So you see just overall, of course, we have some missing years due to the pandemic, but overall, this 5-year trend shows that we improved for the most part. We have been improving for the most part this year. Granted, this data only goes up to winter break. So we have the rest of the school year in terms of this data to collect. But for the most part, we've shown an improvement across most student groups. We have a few that have not improved. But yeah, overall, most have.
I'm just blind enough that I can't see the difference between the Asian and the Hispanic side.
I don't know either, which is which.
Oh, so the Hispanic or Latinx is on top and then the Asian on bottom.
I still can't see the difference.
Oh.
It's the color.
One's a darker blue.
Yeah.
Sorry, can you say that again?
Yeah, sorry, Hispanic or Latinx is the top line and
I see.
the Asians.
Yeah, so they've all improved except for Hispanic and Filipino, correct?
Sorry,
two and more
races. Sorry, I'm having the same problem with the colors.
Do we have any theories as to why? I mean, it looks like as COVID's gone away, I think we talked about this at a previous board meeting, but with two groups it is not.
Yeah, I don't have any theories, to be honest, or, off my head.
We do need to caution that the 23-24 is only half a year.
Right.
Correct. So I think that needs to be taken into consideration when you see, I mean, it is going down, but it is half the year.
I mean,
Is it 10%, miss 10% of the days within the first half, or is it once you get to a certain number of days, you're chronically trend?
yeah, so that's a really good question. So for absenteeism, yeah, it's 10%. In this case, the data we've taken for this particular year is starting the first day of school up to winter break.
So 10% of those days that have already happened. Okay.
Yeah, that's
And it's a moving 10%, right, Nate? So within the first month, it's less days
yeah.
throughout.
And then this is the same data but broken down by other student groups. So you can see pretty much the same idea here. We have leveled off a little bit for the most part, but we do have students with disabilities continue to rise there. This is just a comparison between us and the state of California and San Mateo County. It's not apples to apples. I know we talked about this last year, but the county and state data include unified districts, which include grades 9 through 12. But it's just interesting to see that the trend line there. So this is data for essentially days missed, percentage of days missed, or percentage of students absent prior to winter break, starting in 2017. So you'll see some of the weeks leading up to winter break didn't have Fridays, which is why some of the lines end early. The green line is this year. So the second worst. Last year was the worst, which is that darker orange on the top. So we have improved. But it's still the second worst year that we've had since 2017.
But we did not have that Friday off, right? That's why it goes that far.
Yeah, so this last year we did not, we had school on Friday. And one thing we've talked about before is the misalignment between our calendar and the high school calendar. So their winter break has started a week earlier than ours. So it's just something to consider. And sorry, and I forgot to mention, this is BIS. Only. And then this is the elementary schools. So the green line again is this year. And the orange line just below it is last year. So
It's worse this year.
yeah,
For the little ones.
yeah, and I'm not sure why. And yeah,
And they're taking Wednesday off for some reason.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's the cheapest airfare.
They're coming back on Thursday, Friday.
And that is a minimum day only in the elementary schools currently.
yes.
But you know, the pattern that is sort of not just for winter break, but right, if there are a lot of students with RTI or intervention, and I think the principals were saying this as well. Sort of, you know, that is also where the most school would be advantageous. So it seems like all of these trends, if we're correct, Nate, are signaling actually the folks that really do need to be in school are not in school for some portion of the time.
And that really is the concern. Looking at the national data, I mean, it looks like, you know, we're kind of clawing back academically in terms of the learning loss over the pandemic, but chronic absenteeism continues to really be a problem for not just here, but pretty much everywhere. So,
this might sound silly, but do we ever survey those that are not there and ask, where were you? Why?
that's a good question. Not that I know of, but
I mean, because we know who they are.
When they do hit a certain point, though, they have to do a school team meeting called a SART. And that is a trigger once they hit a certain point where we call parents in. And they meet with the principal and the counselors and talk about what the barriers are and how we can support them. And sometimes it is long weekends, sometimes it is illness, sometimes it is traveling.
And in theory, they're calling the school and saying what's happening. The child is sick in Florida.
So we would have.
Sick in
Right.
Florida. Yeah.
And we also do independent study for 3 or more days. for
So
students
then we
available.
may have some data then already.
But I'm suggesting
Yeah.
maybe they're not saying
Yeah,
they're
gotcha.
in Florida, but they are sick.
And so I just want to be clear here that this is now, we moved away from absenteeism to truancy, truancy being unexcused absences. And for someone to be considered truant, they need to miss essentially three chunks of a half an hour. So a half an hour. So if I miss a half an hour, 3 days in a row, I'm truant. Or if I miss 3 whole days in a row, I'm truant. So the threshold's kind of low. But the key is really that it's unexcused. I just collected some data here that I thought was a little bit telling. So let you just take a look at that. Really, again, I'm, as we were talking about earlier, it's some of our students that, we really want to make sure they're in class, right? Some of the students, some of our more vulnerable students are the ones who are missing school. So that's something that we have to be.
It would be interesting, Greg mentioned, or when Greg was talking, one of the other principals mentioned, well, and it helps if BIS that they can get themselves to school. And they're not reliant on a parent always. It'd be interesting to see in the future, like the next time you do this, what BIS's rates are of late attendance that turns into truancy, but they still get themselves to school.
Yeah, I think that's, I think that's super important, especially, because as students get older and especially as they transition to high school, then they have a lot more control over whether or not they go to school. So it's really important to, establish that.
Because we can work with
Because I
them
would
in a
be the
different
other
way.
Yeah.
Marla, this maybe is for you, and I think the answer is yes, but when there are inter-district transfers, do we screen for that in terms of like when we're accepting a transfer, do we understand what the prior history is with respect to truancy?
So our inter-district transfer policy is pretty strict on who we can and cannot take. So if they meet one of the qualifications to come in, we take them under that. And then at the end of the year, they have to reapply every single year.
Right.
And when that happens, we pull discipline, we pull attendance.
You do look at it?
We to renew it, we do. We have some students that we have on attendance contracts, conditional to be here. But we do have that, and really, the other thing I want to say, we also, I want to give a huge shout out to our principals, because we also have some students that might show up in here, they might have cancer, they might have, so they also work with those families too, to ensure that they're getting the proper supports.
Yeah.
So I think it's important to think about that component, but every inter-district transfer, when we renew it at the end of the year, we go through a whole list of they have to meet the qualifications.
So take us through the next steps.
Yep. So a lot of this is stuff we're doing already. And a lot of it is actually outlined in our board policy. So Marla had mentioned SART, which is the school attendance review team, which can also occur in the form of an SST or student support team as well. But these types of meetings are really supposed to support the family and support the student and be a part of our MTSS framework. So it's, not just a slap on the wrist and send you on your way. It's, it's really taking them in and trying to see how it yeah, we will be working with the county. They will be getting funding for us being in differentiated assistance. We don't get that funding directly, but they get that funding in order to support us. And yes, just some of the things that we've been doing in terms of, we mentioned mariachi and ELOP has been mentioned a couple of times. iReady and all that has been mentioned. So all these things that we're doing to try to, it's kind of twofold. It's partially to help students to enrich, for enrichment, but also, to really strengthen school connectedness and things like that. I encourage attendance. And this is at the school sites. Again, a lot of this stuff is, are things we're doing, especially, our administrators and our mental health staff are really on top of this stuff. So.
Hey, Nate, next time you present this data, would it be possible to see the economic loss to the district from absent students in terms of ADA?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Great.
Actually, I'm curious myself, so I'll take a look and throw that in.
Might be part of the strategy of bringing the parents along to not pull their kids out.
I will
2 days before break because it costs the district.
Yeah, it's funny when I remember I went to Lincoln and I remember when I was sick and we got the robocall home, it actually stated how much money. I don't think we can do that anymore, but it was just interesting as a child to hear, oh, $200 or whatever, how much money it was, but yeah, it was actually stated.
We can add that for the community because we have a special presentation on budget at the end of the month too. So everybody can hear it. That's great.
Great.
I think that's it. Any other questions?
Yes. Great. Thank you, Nate.
Thank you.
Item 17F. Which is summer learning opportunities.
Internet?
I don't know if it's internet or.
Mine
Yeah.
does, I think it's fax. I did too. I don't know what you're saying, but I lost it.
Good evening, Board President Brown, trustees, Superintendent Silversmith, and Cabinet. My name is Katie Von Heusen, Principal on Special Assignment. My colleague could not be with us to do the presentation. She had a personal matter she needed to leave a little earlier. So I hopefully will muddle through. I want to, first of all, thank members of the Cabinet that are here tonight, because the first submission of the presentation we're about to go through had some pieces that needed to be tweaked a lot. And all of the people up there helped get the presentation to the current draft that you have. And I'm very appreciative for their support. So on my speaker notes, it says Christina introduces ESY, but just as a reminder that there are 3 types of programs we'll be offering over the summer. For our special ed students, where it's mandated by their IEP that they have summer learning. The qualification is really about a determination made by the IEP team if the student is having difficulty recouping previously learned skills after an extended break. That's really the determiner. Step up to kindergarten are students who are about to come into our schools who have never attended any type of preschool prior to matriculating in transitional kindergarten or kindergarten. And once again, our full steam ahead program, the focus on math instruction and VAPA. Both Step Up to Kinder and Full Steam Ahead are funded by the Extended Learning Opportunities Program that provides for an extended school year for our English learners, students that qualify for free and reduced lunch, and or students who are in the foster care system. And I am not advancing, thank you. So what I've done is taken the grid approach to delineating basic items from each of the 3 programs. This year, we're going to run our ESY program concurrently with our Full Steam Ahead. And this allows for wonderful opportunities for mainstreaming for our special education students, especially for the enrichment aspects and VAPA aspects presented in the afternoons. So the second line, you can see who are served by each of the programs and the program hours. Now, it's past my bedtime, sorry. One piece of the Extended Learning Opportunities program is that we offer not only 30 additional days during the school year, but those 30 additional days are up to 9 hours. And again, we have to offer them, and families have the option of taking them or not taking them, or taking whatever piece of them that we offer. So to be compliant with the guidelines for the LLP funding, we have to offer a 9-hour day for our qualified students, general ed and special ed students alike. This coming summer, we plan to use our own wonderful teachers to offer those additional hours at the end of the day. You will see on the staffing list on the next slide that we are planning to hire full-day teachers plus half-day teachers to provide programming from that 3 to 6 period. Next slide, please. So in anticipation of our own staff providing programming from 3 to 6, you can see 2.5 FTE, basically 5 half-day teachers to support the extended time from 3 to 6. I will note that different than last year, our extended school year will be running for the same hours as our general ed programming from 8:30 to 3. So, Ms. Dela Cruz, this looks a little bit different than what you and I discussed because we made the work compliant with what needs to be offered for our extended school year students. And again, this slide should look very familiar to you because it's very similar to what I brought before us, is that for the morning time, we're going to be using our UCube summer camp curriculum, which is based on Joe Bowler's work that involves having teachers work with students to develop their mathematical thinking, as opposed to just, okay, here's another sheet full of times tables work. And dedicated algebra and math support for our secondary students. And in the afternoon, and in fact, during the day, we did it as well, visual and performing arts opportunities for our students. Last year, 2 of our music teachers offered push-in work for all of our grade levels. That was very, everyone was super thrilled with the work they were able to do with our students. The piece we are addressing this year, I'm hearkening back to in September when I presented about the summer program, is I want to work with our staff once we're done hiring very rigorously on how can we know if the work we've done with our students has produced any academic gains. We made an attempt to use Math Annex, and I think we got some valuable data from that assessment, but we can hone in and be a lot more specific with some pre-tests and post-tests. So when the data is presented in the fall, you can have some actual fingertips on what good those investments of time, money, and support had for the academic achievement of our students. And on to the estimated costs. I've added an additional line to indicate the costs for teachers for the extended program. I've also increased the cost for extended school year to reflect 3 6-hour teachers at the full stipend of $12,000 apiece. $45,000 includes the benefits, and also increase the cost for step up to kinder, so that the students who are ELOP eligible in those youngest grades can also be offered that 9-hour time. And my favorite slide always is the thank you slide. And my asking if there's any questions from the board. Thank you. Okay, bye.
Oh, where is it going to be in the summer?
That is something that is still in discussion. The original idea is to hold all of the programming over at Roosevelt, splitting it between 2 campuses like we did, while it gave our middle school students some valuable experience on a secondary campus, became a nightmare organizationally. So we're going to keep it small and tight, a little more tightly knit than spread out. So the current plan, Roosevelt Elementary.
And Katie, what was the uptake like last year in terms of, do you feel like the program is well utilized? In other words, do folks that qualify?
I believe if I harken back, and it might have been before you came on board, I presented some data about how many ELOP families we had and how many were enrolled. And I think we served close to 400 students last summer, and a good 2/3 of those were students that were qualified for ELOP.
I missed what you said earlier about the Math Annex possibility of a pre-test and a post.
We used Math Annex before because we were trying to simultaneously get us some data.
Last year we did?
Last summer. And simultaneously get us some data and allow some more teachers to pilot. And while the intentions were good, I don't think the data was crunchy enough for us to go, here's how well.
We did.
Exactly.
Right.
So I want to tighten up. I want to tighten up the assessments so that it's more tangible and concrete for when I come back, for when you hear the information in the fall.
Got it. So
Yeah.
is Math Annex, you can manipulate it that way to say, like, here are the goals.
I don't know if it's going to
Oh.
be Math Annex, unfortunately,
Okay.
only because for what we're using it during the school year, it's absolutely the best test the best tool I've ever come across in a small, tight situation like 19 days with specific topics.
Yeah.
It's a little dicier.
Thank you.
Any more questions? Great, thank you, Katie.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. And this is also a voting item. We need to the motion on approval of the summer learning opportunities spending or proposal.
I will make a motion to approve item 17F, summer learning opportunities.
A second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 5-0.
Thank you, trustees.
Thank you.
Here's hoping the rest of the year evening goes quickly.
Thank you, Katie. Item 18A, demographic enrollment and projections. Marie, are you presenting this? Sure. Introducing this?
Thank you, board. Tonight, we have Mr. Ken Reynolds here from Schoolworks to present the demographic study. They provided the report, which we have shared with the board, and he's going to go over the results of the study.
Good evening.
That's not.
Good evening.
It's still.
I think it might
We
be.
can hear you, but the people that are watching online can't, so we try to use the mic to get it working. Thank you.
It took a second.
It's not reliable.
Yeah. Good evening. I'm Ken Reynolds, president of Schoolworks, and we do have a quick presentation on the enrollment projections that we prepared and the sort of the process we went through. And I did get some of the questions in advance, so I'll do my best to answer your questions also. So what we do is we look at all sorts of data and do an analysis to try to look at historic trends to try to then project into the future. The three key components of that analysis, as shown on this chart, are basically looking at what happens from year to year with your student populations, how many third graders show up in fourth grade the following year. Another key component is looking at the number of births that are occurring and how many of those children showed up as students in your schools 4 years later for the TK program or 5 years later for the kindergarten program. And then the other key component that we look at is what is going to be the impact of new housing developments as new homes are built. So all of that results in an analysis by boundary, and then we adjust for inter-district factors and then any intra-district for the elementary schools. So here we're showing a map of your school district. In the red dots represent all the students that were attending your schools this school year. And so it just shows you how well densely populated your the area that you served is. And we do have, again, multiple years of data, so we're able to track that data over time. The next component we look at is our birth information. So we've correlated the line so that the blue line across the top has already been shifted 5 years to line up with those kindergarten students shown on the blue bars. And so we can see by looking at the birth data and the kindergarten data that we used to have larger enrollments and more births in the past than we do currently. Moving forward, and we show the yellow and red bars, that's our incoming kindergarten students, with the red portion being the anticipated impact of the new housing developments. It is relatively stable. We've heard about, obviously, declines that have occurred, and obviously our new sort of average is lower than our historic average, but it's not continuing a downward trend. It's relatively stable. Statewide, those numbers have been continuing to decline. So we are seeing some good news there. Our next page highlights the same type of information, but this is for our TK program, our 4-year-olds. And so what's different here is historically, right, we've had 3 months of students enrolled that were eligible. Last year, it increased to 5 months. This year, it was up to 7 months. It's going to continue to expand the next 2 years to 9 months and then all 12 months. So starting in 2025, all 4-year-olds will be eligible to enroll. So we anticipate we'll be just over 200 students once it becomes a situation where all the 4-year-olds are eligible. Obviously, there's room for more growth because that's still quite a bit less than the number of students we have in our kindergarten class. And so, it's just going to be just see how the community embraces that program as it becomes more well known. This next slide really is a visual way of representing what we see in terms of what happens to our population over time. The blue line on this chart is our kindergarten enrollment when that grade started school. The green bars represent our population by grade for this school year. And of course, all the data you're seeing in our report is as of October each school year. And so what the takeaways here are, one, we can see which grades are our largest grades, or if we have some grades that are smaller. And so we do see obviously that our kindergarten and first grade are smaller, but so are our 7th grade and 8th grade. So we're going to be graduating some smaller classes the next 2 years. And when, of course, we can see some larger grades in 2nd grade and 4th, 5th, and 6th. So as these 4th, 5th, and 6th graders progress, we're going to end up with an increase in our middle school population. And then by comparing the green to the blue, and especially in our grades K through 5, the population is retained very well overall. And so the net impact of mobility has been just a slight positive impact. Whereas when we look at grades 6, 7, and 8, and we'll focus on that a little bit later, right? Our current population is less than if we would have retained all the students that started kindergarten in those grades. But again, there's more time for changes to have occurred for those grades too. So then the other component we look at is the impact of new housing. And of course, a lot of what's being built these days is higher density. And throughout, no matter where you are in California, any housing being built now is also more expensive than we used to, 5+ years ago. It's just been drastic increases in pricing. So that has driven down our yield rates. And so we're projecting an average yield rate of about 0.236. Historically in our state, that number was about a 0.5. So the expectation of what we get out of new housing is now less than half of what we would have expected, 10 or 20 years ago.
Sorry, I'm having trouble reading that. So what is the consequence of the yield rate? Like when we look at it as 0.236?
So a simple way of reading that would be if you had 100 new homes built in your community, we would end up with about 23, almost 24 students.
I see.
So it's not a significant number. It used to be, right, we used to have old standards of saying, no, for every, 1,000 homes or 2,000 homes, right, we're going to need a new school. It's not quite that way anymore.
You're saying something like 20% of a housing development size.
Of 23% of the homes would generate a student.
A lot of those new homes are apartments, correct?
Yes, they are. Yeah, we try to take a look at, what's being built and what's planned to be built. Obviously, things can change over time. We're trying to look out 6 years, and the economy can have a large impact on that. So our short-term projections are typically much more reliable than the long-term just due to the changes that could occur. So we combine all of these different factors that we take a look at. this is how we like to present the overall results. Again, what we're looking at here is 10 years of history and then 6 years into the future. And we color code it by orange for our elementary grades and green for our middle school grades. And so obviously the district had growth until 2019. You saw a decline during the pandemic like most districts did. And since then, the numbers have been down a couple of years, and then this year they increased. And so again, it's when we look at this high level number, there's all these different factors that go into the data. And so that's why we talked about some of those factors when we're showing the projection. So we anticipate an increase over the next 2 years. And after that, it's going to be relatively stable. And again, the key components in why we see an increase the next 2 years are two major factors. One being the TK program building out to a full grade. And the other is just a fact that we're going to be graduating smaller classes in our 7th and 8th grade as they progress out the system. And then, of course, development is not having a significant impact, but it does overall help offset the lower number of births that have occurred now compared to historic times. So next, again, in our full report, there's lots of detailed information. For those that aren't familiar, we did a report for you 2 years ago, but the format that we use for each school, we do a map and an attendance pattern chart, which are shown on this page as a sample. We use red dots to represent students that are attending the school for the boundary they live in. And we use yellow dots for students that are transferring into that school from somewhere else in the district. And then we have the green dots for students that are transferring in from outside the district. And then we have blue dots for students that are still enrolled in your school district, but attending a different school than the one for the boundary they live in. So again, lots of information on those attendance patterns. And then when we do the projection for a school, here we're looking at Lincoln, we will have a blue line that represents the population within a boundary, and then the red line representing the population that's attending the school. And at Lincoln, those numbers are almost identical. So the net impact of all those transfer patterns is not creating a net increase or decline. We are showing a significant increase in enrollment at Lincoln. That's where most of the development is. And so again, we'll just have to watch real closely to see, those types of housing units that are being built. If we get this many students or if it can come in less, odds are it won't be any higher than this though. But even with this amount of development, it appears with the capacity you have that they will just fit within your capacity. The next slide again is we have an attendance matrix in our report that shows the details on all those attendance patterns. So if you're curious about where students live versus where they attend, you can get it summarized here. One of the reasons I like including this in our presentations, the very top line shows our inter-district enrollment by campus. And so we had 220 plus students enrolled in your schools as of October that did not live in the district. The majority of those, we had 60 at McKinley and nearly 70 at the middle school, at the intermediate school, BIS. Those are the two schools with the largest number of students from outside the district. Another way I like to illustrate the information, as you heard throughout the evening, right? Your schools are different sizes, have different enrollments. McKinley being the largest of the elementary schools and Hoover being the smallest of the elementary schools. So what we're illustrating again here is red is our enrollment as of this past October, and the blue is the population within the boundary. And so you can see there's a lot more students attending McKinley and live in the boundary, and as I mentioned, 60 of those were inter-district students. The next slide just shows the enrollment projections by school over the next 6 years. And one of the key components I look at here is that bottom line showing our annual change from year to year. So we are anticipating a growth of 46 students next year. And then the following year is up 79, but then the following year is minus 11. Between the 25 and the 26 school years, again, we're going to be graduating that large 6th grade class right now. And we're not expanding the TK anymore because it's already reached a full grade. In our next slide, we always like to include at the end of our report a comparison of our current and projected enrollment to what our capacity is of our classrooms on our campuses. And so that's what we refer to as our utilization factors. And so our current utilization is about 73% at our elementary schools, and that only grows to about 76%. And obviously, most of that is the impact of TK and development. But we do end up right at capacity at Lincoln.
May I ask you a question about this slide?
Yeah.
So if I'm understanding correctly, so for example, it says Roosevelt, 62% current utilization. Does that mean 38% of the school is what?
There's different ways of looking at it. This is based on our classrooms on the campus, and those classrooms at a school, that has fewer number of students can be used for all sorts of other program purposes.
So we're not using 38% of the students based at Roosevelt?
We have room for 38% more
at Roosevelt
students.
Okay.
Yeah. So we said we can handle about 480 on that campus, but we only have about 300. So all of a sudden, 100 students showed up tomorrow. Technically, we have space, right? There'd be a lot of shuffling to do because the classrooms aren't always sitting empty. Sometimes some are being used for storage or some things like that if there's plenty of extra space. But principals are pretty good at utilizing the space they have available.
So then like Franklin would be 42% more, so on and so forth with the missing numbers to get up to 100. But I just want to make sure I'm understanding it correctly. Okay.
Yeah, so that we're just saying there is room if more students show up.
I ask sort of a basic question. How is the capacity determined? Is it literally like the number of seats available in each class or based on, I know.
Yeah, we use the number of classrooms on campus multiplied by what the loading ratio is for each of the grade levels. And I don't have those numbers right in front of me, but it's in the report under the capacity section.
Conceptually, the loading ratio is, like, how can I think about that? Is it
like, for example, usually for our K3 grades, we load at 24 students per classroom.
I see, that's what you mean. Okay.
Right. So if on average right now you only have about 22 in each classroom, then those 2 extra seats, is about 10% of your capacity.
Yeah, I see.
So then the next page again is just a real simple look. It's showing you your own data, right? What was our enrollment last October compared to this October by school and also by grade. And so we had a net increase of 35 students, but some of the schools have more students this year and some have less. The largest increase was at BIS, the intermediate school. When we look at it by grade, most of your cohorts are pretty positive. Well, of course, we saw that -10 cohort between 5th and 6th grade this year. We taking a closer look at on the next slide. So one of the items that you saw earlier on our cohort slide showed the current enrollment at Burlingame Intermediate is less than we would have started with if we retained all the students that started kindergarten. And so on this page, we're highlighting the enrollment over the past 10 years and what our cohorts are from 3rd to 4th grade, 4th to 5th grade, and 5th to 6th grade. And in several of the years, we do have a negative cohort between 5th and 6th. And so it is a pretty standard trend. When we looked at the 10-year average, on average, we're losing just over 12 students. The last 3-year average has been a larger drop of 17 students. And so it's about a 4.4% drop when we look at the number of students we lose compared to how many students are in that grade. And of course, one of the reasons or the theories that that drop is existing is because of the size of the school, right? We only have the one intermediate school, but we have so many elementary schools. And so again, is it a transportation issue? Is it, I'm going to a nice small elementary school where I pretty much know everybody, to school with 1,000 students. And so they're looking for a smaller arrangement or option for their middle school experience. Not that that would help much once they have to get to high school, but again, that's just probably one of the likely components of what's happening there. The other trend we looked at on this page was your inter-district enrollment. Is that growing or declining over time? And obviously, it's compared to 2018, it's increased quite a bit, but compared to 2020 and 21, it's pretty average. And so obviously that's telling us, and again, the school with the most transfers is the intermediate school. So obviously there's a lot of families interested in the programs that could be offered at a good size middle school configuration. So I always like to end talking about, things we want to keep an eye on looking forward. And one of those is the TK enrollment, making sure the community is aware as that program expands the next 2 years, so that you can, the sooner they start in your schools, the greater the opportunities for learning they have. Then obviously, even though we're showing 6 years of projections, right, we don't know those children that will be enrolled in your TK and kindergarten class 6 years from now have not even been born yet. And so again, we're having to make more assumptions the farther we go out. And so as new birth data comes in, right, that's going to alter what the projections are out for 5 and 6 years. And then of course, the key component is really watching what happens with the housing and the type of housing and the price of housing, and seeing what true yield rates we're going to get from these types of projects over the next several years. Again, we're anticipating an average of just over 300 units per year. And so we'll want to watch that over the next couple of years to see if it's really generating about 50 to 60 units for you, or if it's going to come in even lower, we're only getting 20 or 30 students. And then finally, I had done a little research on some more detailed questions about, like, for example, at Franklin, our kindergarten to first grade cohort. And when you look at the numbers, specifically, we have 40 kindergarten students at Franklin, but next year we're only showing 30 in first grade. And so it's like, why did it go down 10? And it's just the methodology that we're using. We are tracking the population within each boundary and then adding in a ratio based on the percent of inter-district and intra-district transfers. And what I noticed for Franklin, when you look at that particular page, that we had a significant population transfer into the school in kindergarten, but we didn't have that same trend in first grade. So I'm not pressing those transfer ratios. And so that it means that, right, the numbers might be off a little bit in a particular grade level, but in terms of the total school population, it should track very well. So yeah, it's likely we'll have more first graders because some of those transfers from kindergarten will probably continue on into first grade. And if so, then perhaps maybe the kindergarten number might come in a little shy of what we had projected.
Thank you. Do we have any questions for Ken?
I actually have a question, and it's kind of a weird question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. So, San Mateo County in general is a really old county on average. And I just throwing it out there that a lot of people in Burlingame are pretty old. And if you're going to have 2 or 3 kids, you tend to want a single family home. And I'm just thinking, you know, as the population ages, whether they go to a retirement community or they're just dying, we'll actually have more single family home stock available sooner rather than later, just because the average age of a lot of our single family homeowners is quite old. And I'm just wondering if your company like tracks that. Like, it's not just new development, it is the availability of existing single family homes, which to me generates a much higher yield than an apartment.
Great question. We have done studies that look at that in detail. In general, the basic assumptions we're making by studying the population over time in your schools takes that into account. Just so it's inherent in the numbers. It's not specific analysis that's required for the methodology we're using. But when we do look at that, we can track, for example, through the real estate agencies, the addresses of homes that are sold, and then compare and look at how many students have moved into those places, and look at what the net impact of resales are. But in general, we found that having that additional data, while interesting to look at, typically is not going to create a change in our overall projections, because that it's not like a community is all the same age. And so we can look at census data and see what percentage of our population is, in that retirement age, and see if that's changed over time. But again, diving in that deep into that particular set of data is probably helps you understand, the population out there, but doesn't have much of an impact on our enrollment projections, because of the way that we're studying your historic data gives us all that type of data is already inherent in the data that we're analyzing.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, lost my train of thought. I realized I'm an old dad. But
You're not part of that group I'm talking about.
But I wasn't prepared.
Yes, that's a long-winded answer.
Oh yes, I know what I was going to ask you, sir. Is there anywhere in the data in the slide, or do I have to piece together slides that would tell me approximately how many age TK through 8th grade students live in Burlingame but do not go to BSD? In other words, potential students that were not going to our schools.
No, we don't have that included in this report. We collect the data on students that are enrolled in your district, and that's why we know those coming in from outside. We will have a new data set available from the census soon, probably next month. And a lot of our clients are wanting us to do a real quick review of, if the census told us we had this many, 10-year-olds and this many 11-year-olds, this many 12-year-olds, and then we compare that to what that grade equivalent is of what your enrollment was, that will give us a good snapshot. Again, that's from April 1st of 2020, of what the capture rate basically is of how many of all the students that live within your district, what percentage were enrolled in your schools. And again, on average, right, that's going to be perhaps maybe around 80% or so, because we're going to have a certain population in charter schools, a certain population of private schools, and statewide, or at least in Northern California. I think that's about 20% of our population.
Mhm.
So it'll be great to see that detailed data to see if you're above or below that average.
Marla, do you know if we'll be receiving that?
I'm going to do it for all of our
Oh,
clients when
we are.
that data comes out. It's a real quick analysis. So it's
Great, thank you.
It'll be a one-page follow-up for you.
Great. Any more questions for Ken? Great. Well, thank you, Ken. This is obviously very important information for our multi-year planning, and it's great to have the confidence to understand the methodology, and appreciate you sticking around to present it to us. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Ken.
All right, item 18B, District Office Modernization and Development Documents. Richard's been patiently waiting in the back.
Good news is that I think I've been able to shorten my presentation to about an hour and a half.
We won't have it.
It takes a couple seconds.
Hold the power button and the light should go yellow. Okay, and then give it a moment to actually.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Thank you. So wanted to give you an update this evening on the alterations that are planned for this project. They design development documents that we received from the architect CAW. So you saw in the packet of information that was included in the board exhibits, you saw the drawings, the specifications, the cost estimate. And so I wanted to go through with you and just give you some quick highlights of the plans as they've been developed. So real quick, as you see in the cost estimate that's attached with the exhibits, we're within the projected budget. We're on schedule to submit to the City of Burlingame for permitting at the beginning of March. And so that permitting will take probably from March through May. And then we'll be doing the bidding process in parallel with the submittal to the city. And so we're working with Marla to identify temporary office space for the district office. And we have some prospects that we're looking closely at. And so then getting into the plans a little bit. Oh, do I have control over this? Okay. Let's see. Okay, so here you see the floor plan for the building. This is the scope that will be included. Will include, of course, the new HVAC system, heating and air conditioning. To get into the details just a little bit, there will be individual what are called cassette units that are in the suspended ceilings that'll be in each of the individual offices. So each office will have its own thermostatic control. There'll be another additional cassette units that are out in the open office area. So there'll be a couple of thermostats out in that area for the control of heat and air over the office pool. And then there'll be a couple of larger units in the attic space that's above us here that'll feed out to one half will feed out to this half of this space, as well as the kitchenette. The other unit will feed out to the back half of this room, because there'll still be a new movable partition that'll be replaced. So those units will be up in the attic and feeding out air to this spaces. So we'll have better thermostatic control on each half of the room here. And so people won't be freezing when they're in the back waiting for presentation while everybody up here is nice and cozy. The other thing that you're seeing on this plan is the alterations to the restrooms to make them accessible. So there's an expansion of the number of units in each of the toilet rooms. And in addition, you're seeing alterations, a little bit of a revision to the layout of the lobby and reception space, or excuse me, the reception and waiting area. And then, of course, there's the new exit that's going to be out of that window there to the far right, with a ramp that then continues out and goes out to the front of the building. So scope will also include new workstations in the office pool area, new exit that I just mentioned from the boardroom, new landscaping out in front, and then, of course, a new AV system for the boardroom to replace this specific microphone. So that's a little bit on the scope. Well, here. There's a layout of the reception area. So a little reconfiguration of the reception workstation itself. We have to get an accessible area. I'll show you some images there on that in a second that you also saw in this. So new reception workstation, new waiting area, furniture, and then a workstation, a work counter area that's behind the reception. So if you look at this plan, there's sort of a lateral wall that's behind what I would call a credenza space that's behind the reception workstation. That wall will be sort of a feature wall. So as you come into the lobby, it's an opportunity for a nice, sort of branding logo for BSD, et cetera. And it also creates a little bit of screening there for the reception. So CAW has done a great job giving us various different options for these areas. And I think it's going to turn out very nicely for that new reception area. Here you see a couple of images for the type of workstation that we're looking at for that reception space. So again, it'll have a little bit of a modesty screen to it, as well as the required accessible counter area for somebody in a wheelchair if they have to come up and do some business with the district. And here's some images, just sort of mood images for what that reception area could look like. Obviously, it won't be this grandiose, but just trying to give some idea of the scale of a workstation, and type of backdrop, type of lighting that we're going to be seeing in that space. And then there you see the type of furniture that we're looking at for the reception space. Don't zero in on colors because that's yet to be determined. But the idea is to create a couple of seating areas that are a step above the stackable chairs that are out there now. For example, a couple of soft cushion seats that can get tossed to the side. Kids can sit on those with a little table area there if they're waiting there with mom and dad doing some business there at the district. And then these are some images of the workstations that will be out in the office pool area. A couple of different options. There's some subtleties, that you're seeing in the different options, as I flip back and forth, if you're catching it, the differences being lateral files versus, taller cabinets with a personal coat and personal space area. So just different options and configurations. I think it's important to note also that as we've looked at these with the contract furnishings vendor, we've reeled in district staff, folks that are actually out there sitting in these workstations to give input, to look at some of the details. And so some of our next steps will be to look at some updates to the images that you're seeing now. More good news is that we are within budget for what we've allocated for these workstations. And so we're going to do another round of a remote meeting with them to look at some updates to this. And then at some point, we'll be going on a field trip to their showroom to actually look physically at the potential workstations themselves as we zero in on the actual finishes. So again, this isn't to represent colors, but the idea is to represent just what the configurations might be. They will have sit-stand surfaces, so and those will be on a pneumatic, lever. So it's convenient for anybody working in that station to either sit or stand as they're doing their work. So I think pretty much it. Questions, comments, and of course, do not call Tim. I mean, he'll answer, but he'll just make something up. So, yeah.
Can you just remind us of the timeline? So when does this all begin?
Yeah, so we're anticipating that we're going to leave the district office to finish out the business on the fiscal year through June. And so we're going to move out early July in order to start construction in August. And we're anticipating the construction, we're giving it a good 10 months of construction period in order to get back in before the end of the fiscal year next year. So we need to find, temporary housing at temporary location for about a year, a little less than a year.
Talk about the keys, the entry.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's another thing is that with the keyless access system that we installed at the Student Recreation Center, it seems to be working very well. And so we're going to deploy that and do the same thing here on the main entry here, so that our partner users who use the space in the evenings, PCE, others, they can have access to the boardroom. They won't have to be given a key. We won't have the issue of lost keys, et cetera. So they'll be able to access the main entry, be able to access a door here, to be able to get just to the kitchenette. So they'll be able to get to the restrooms, but we can lock off the rest of the office space for those nighttime users
and be able to do that with the card key system. So, what else? Did I miss anything else? More memory.
Ergonomics, we looked at ergonomics.
Yeah, we're looking at the ergonomics on the workstations. Like I said, the sit stand, I think, is a big thing. It'll also include new chairs for all of the office areas. Okay.
Great.
But the executives don't get anything new.
I like my stuff.
Yeah.
Thank you, Richard.
Sure.
And we do need to vote on this one.
Yeah. Thank you.
So it's the approval of the design development documents. Anyone would like to make a motion?
I can move to approve the design development documents.
Second.
Great. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. All right, item 18C, update on the governor's budget.
Thank you. So last month, the governor presented his proposal for next year's state budget. And this presentation is a brief update and some highlights of some of the factors that may impact our district's 24-25 budget, as well as our multi-year projections. School Services of California held a workshop a few weeks ago, and they provided this board-ready presentation, so it was really helpful. They went over some of the themes of the governor's budget, which includes some regarding the shortfall of about $38 billion. He's still focusing on some of the learning loss due to COVID-19, and his budget is a little bit more optimistic in terms of assumptions compared to what the Legislative Analyst Offices has provided. And even though the general fund has not been coming in as well as they had projected, he's still not proposing any new cuts or any deferrals in the budget. And the only bad news is that our COLA has gone down quite a bit since first interim. When you look at the three taxes that this state funding is based on, they have our personal income taxes, the corporate taxes, and sales and use tax. The governor's projections are, again, a little bit more optimistic than what the LAO is projecting. But you can see there, the green is the governor's budget proposal compared to the orange, which is the LAOs. The COLA is the biggest change. If you remember when we presented the first interim, the 24-25 COLA cost of living adjustment was at 3.94%. And we did talk about how they thought it was going to go down to 1%. In fact, it's a little bit less at 0.76%. So there's 3% reduction in the cost of living adjustment. And then also for next year, we didn't even talk about that. The following year, 25-26, that cost of living adjustment also went down. And at this point, it's not even funded yet. That's still yet to be determined. So if you remember a few years ago, we didn't even receive COLA. So there's a possibility that that may happen again. We'll find out more at the May revise. The LCFF calculation I did here is actually based on Burlingame's information, and I just used the ADA projection that we used at first interim. This is assuming that our ADA for next year is about the same as what we had projected during first interim. So if you look at our base grant per ADA, our TK3, we get about $9,900 per ADA, and then the grade span from 4 to 6, we get $10,069 per ADA, and then the 7/8 is $10,367. And when you add the COLA, you can see what our base grant per ADA looks like for 24-25. And then on top of that, we get supplemental funding for our unduplicated pupil students. And because we are below 65% in our unduplicated pupil percentage, we do not receive any concentration funding. So what we end up with is our projected total revenue for next year. It's about 35.8 million, which is 1.1 million less than what we had projected at first interim. And we kind of talked about that as well during first interim. And unfortunately, it looks like the projection is not looking that great for next year.
Does that use our new demographic numbers, or is that from what we looked at previously?
It's
the ADA?
pretty much the same projection that was presented this evening.
Okay.
And then overall, this dartboard is what school services provides to us at every phase of budget development and interim reports. It just shows you some of the planning factors that we use in our multi-year, which includes the cost of living adjustment, CPI, the consumer price index. We usually apply to like our materials and supplies, services and operating expenditures for multi-year. Something that FICMAT also recommends so that you don't see those expenditures stay flat. You have to assume that there's going to be some increases. And then the rates for retirement, CalSTRS and CalPERS, you can see CalSTRS is pretty much steady for the next 4 years. And the CalPERS is the one that goes up every year. Unemployment insurance stays about the same. Lottery, the same. No change. Same thing with the mandate block grant, just goes up slightly per ADA.
We move back into LCFF and back into base aid all year long?
Yeah, for next year, that's what it looks like. We are back into LCFF the next couple of years. And then I believe the third year, we might be into basic aid again. This is just the timeline. What we looking forward to the next couple of months. We do have our March layoff deadline. So by March 15th, if we're going to do any layoff notices, we need to get that in front of the board and have that reviewed and approved. And in May, the governor will present another revision to his budget. And then in June, we'll be presenting a budget for next year for the board to adopt. The local reserve cap, we will have another 10% cap on the reserve, which we've had for the last couple of years based on, certain factors. So it will again apply for 24-25. What we're looking to ahead is that we are showing preliminary projections of a $2.6 million deficit in 24-25. If you remember at first interim, it was at 1.6 because of the lower COLA, it's another $1 million. And then for 25-26, another reduction in COLA now is resulting in about a $1.8 million deficit. So overall, the decrease over the next 2 years is about 3.74% since the last time we looked at the COLA. And this assumes that everything else stays the same. The March 12th meeting, I'll be presenting the second interim report. And then at the same time, we're going through the process of developing our budget for next year, looking at our enrollment, our class configurations, and how that will impact all of our FTE projections as well. And then talked about how the May revise, the governor will be presenting another revision to his budget. And that's it. Thank you. Any questions, comments?
I just want a reminder. So Marie said in a previous meeting that if we just increased our ADA percentage by like 2 percentage points, it would be like $1 million or over or something like that.
Yeah, so if you think about average, it's 10,000-11,000 per ADA. So if we were to increase 1%, that's about 33 ADA. So you multiply that times 10,000. It's over 300,000. So 100 ADA would be over $1 million. So each ADA, we can increase our attendance. That is definitely one way to balance our budget. Because when you think about it, you're either increasing your revenues or you're reducing your expenditures when you're trying to balance.
And then when they're talking about ADA, is it the average across the entire school year that they're calculating, or is it actually per month?
It's the entire year.
It's the entire year.
Yeah. Actually, there's 3 periods during the year. P1 goes through the beginning of school through December. And then P2, it's from beginning to school through April. And P2 is the one they use mostly for funding purposes. And then there's the annual. So they're constantly certifying our ADA.
Okay.
I thought the demographer's recommendation of just increasing the TK uptake. I mean, it's the easiest way. It's better for the kids to start their schooling at age 4, and we're missing, if the uptake rate is 75% or whatever it was, and it could be, 20 points higher, then that's a nice opportunity. I mean, in terms of increasing ADA, not that that's easy to do, but.
And then to the point, making sure that they understand that they're.
Yeah, I'm gonna say, make sure they come to school.
Yeah, right.
That's
It's not preschool.
important.
Right.
Good point. Yes. Okay. Any other questions?
No, but thank you, Marie, for presenting it. It was clear. I think it's a really difficult place to be in, but I think the information you presented is really clear. So that's really helpful.
Thank you. I agree.
Thank you.
Right, moving on to item 19A, which is our sunshine.
Thank you. I'm bringing forward tonight the Sunshine second read between the Burlingame School District and the Burlingame Education Association. As you heard from President Byrd earlier when he spoke, once this is voted on and ratified, we can begin to meet at the table and begin bargaining.
Great. Any questions, or we can have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve item 19A Burlingame Education Association Sunshine Negotiation.
Great, I'll second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 5-0. Item 19B is information item, I believe. I lost my internet again. But this is the trustee elections timeline and outreach plan update. So I think it's more for discussion. Is that right?
Yes, correct.
Okay.
This evening, we are bringing back, there was some questions at the January 9th board meeting that we went and worked with the San Mateo Elections Office. In May, they will reach out to our district to get information, and we will get all of our documents submitted. And then there will be a resolution known as specifications of the election order, which is due to the elections office 132 days prior to the election. And then they will approve a resolution as well. November 5th is the election day. Filing period opens 113 days before election and closes 88 days before election. And the elections office will provide these dates to us in May, specific dates in May. And we have to return our contract by early July. The filing period typically when we looked back historically, runs July to August, and then the elections are in November. We also linked the San Mateo County Assessor's Clerk, Recorder, and Chief Elections Office website page, along with our BSD trustee area map. Since our last meeting, we have also, as a district, our IT, Curtis, went in and polled every student within the whole district so that we could poll by area, trustee area, so that we can start to also do targeted outreach to families. So one of the discussion items I want to bring forward tonight, we had talked previously about holding possible evening meet and greets with 2 board members or mass emails. So kind of looking at thoughts going forward.
I would propose we sort of tap into all areas. Outreach, informational needs. Really push that we want a diverse board in all areas. Race, ethnicity, and the lens that you come with and background that you bring.
So are you going to send out emails specifically to the trustee areas that are open?
Correct. We would sort it by the 3 trustee areas open.
Okay. So it would say, hey, you're receiving this because you are in an area with an open seat.
You're
Okay.
You are trustee
Okay.
area 2. Congratulations.
Good, right. Right, okay, perfect.
Okay, we will go forward then and work on setting up a few meet and greets and a mass email to families within those areas.
And maybe we could do them at the sites even that those, I mean, I know we're not designated to an actual school, but for instance, one of them really is in Franklin's area. Maybe we could have 2 trustees go to like PTA meeting at Franklin, or offer to do the meet and greet at Franklin in the evening.
Absolutely. Do we want to hold these hybrid so that people can Zoom in, or do we want them only in person?
I think in the beginning, it's fine to do hybrid. People might just want to come in for a little information and
just listen.
The hordes of people.
The hordes of people. They're not going to the
All right.
All right.
So moving on, item 20A, human resources, school year calendars. Laura, thanks for sticking with us.
So this piece is pretty typical. Each year we propose 3 calendars. Typically the calendar with a full Thanksgiving week and a full President's week always gains the most votes. There are certain things that we gather as a calendar committee and decide together. So PD days, and putting together different options for the calendar in terms of breaks and end and start times. One of the things that came up was an interest in aligning with if we could slowly merge over to align more with BHS even in the summertime as an interest point. And we were able to survey both CSEA and BEA in the feedback. And it is, I think there was a question around like, I remember there was a question around why January 6th was chosen as one of the PD dates. So that was brought up as one of the options that would provide more alignment with BHS, which we did see a big drop in our ADA when BHS is coming back a day or 2 after we return. So we figured that that would be a good option for PD day. So those are the 2 calendars. I also noticed that there was a question around why we do the Friday early dismissals. So that has been a practice for as long as I have known. Typically those were aligned with our back to school night open house. So the Thursday night you would stay, that next day you would get a half day dismissal.
We did see over time, and it was brought to, I actually don't know where the origin of the idea came, but at one point to align to our breaks. So to take those Friday times and align them to our breaks. And it is now part of our BEA contract with our certificated folks to align those with breaks, which actually does show a difference as well in student and staff attendance. So again, trying to kind of align those needs. Any questions on?
It shows the difference in our attendance rates for staff and students.
Yeah, often staff would align to a big break, take time. I mean, it's just kind of the nature of how it works.
Yeah.
So, any other questions for calendar? Okay, so,
We need to.
I'm sorry, it's a funding item.
It is, and I think we need to select, so calendar A is the one that's recommended. We need a
Correct.
motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve calendar A.
A second.
Great. All those in favor?
Aye.
5-0. Thank you, Laura. 20B. Burlingame School District Job Description Review Process.
So we've taken on a large endeavor to go through all of our job descriptions and make sure they're up to date and board approved. We began with our director positions, as they are currently postings that we have folks in interim positions and to post. So we outlined the committee members, which we were really thoughtful about, including our bargaining units and folks from different perspectives. Committee materials include job descriptions we've used in the past and also job descriptions from local similar districts. And then we have a format for reviewing the job descriptions. And then, as is recommended by FCMAT, that we go through a yearly update, which we would streamline. But this first time going through will take quite a bit of time. We do have 2 job proposals. And again, so the job description is informational, but I believe as we review the job descriptions, and am I jumping ahead or am I still okay?
We can move ahead.
Oh, okay,
Yeah, let's move
wonderful.
ahead.
So
20C.
great. So we did meet together as a committee. Keep it rolling. We did meet as a committee and we went through our director of human resources and our director of student support services, which I actually am very proud to say that Florence only found one error because it was a lot of information I processed pretty quickly. So I believe this is a voting item as well. Did you have any questions on our process? We really went through and looked locally and made sure that we were aligning to similar language and similar descriptions and feedback from all the different positional levels on these job descriptions.
Great. So do we have a motion to approve the job descriptions?
I'll move to approve job descriptions for Director of HR and Director of Student Support Services.
Great.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
5-0. All right. Thank you, Laura. Moving on, 20D. This is the SPSA MOU review. A lot of letters there for a number of MOUs for time clocks, groundskeeper, weekend work, differential, and classification and air tags.
So you can see that these span from January back through May, I believe. And so we went through time clock procedures for our IT tech program, which outlines the basics of logging in and out and how to problem solve around that. We also have our mitigating the impact of key loss and using key air tags for our keys, which is an exciting piece. We also worked through for our groundskeepers, they worked weekends, so aligning our weekend work differential pay and outlining that would need to be negotiated for each job description besides groundkeeper one at a time. And then also we had an instructional aid move reclassification to behavioral aid. So I know I went through those very quickly, but I'm happy to answer any questions you might have. Okay, and I believe this one was also an approval for approval.
Okay. No questions?
No.
Great. Can we have a motion on 20D?
Make a motion on 20D.
I'm not gonna try to say it.
MOU review.
Second from Sarah. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Passes 5-0.
I also wanted to say thank you to Kirsten, who helped significantly with the calendar process this year, as I got very sick in December, so she really helped keep things moving. So thank you, Kirsten.
All right, so we're moving on to item 21, public statements related to non-agenda items. So we do have a statement from Brian McLaughlin.
Thank you. So typically the board reviews the Chartwell's contract in March. So I assume the 2024-2025 Chartwell's contract will be coming up. And as you know, the 2023 contract, it's 30 pages long approximately, and there's no comments, there's nothing in it about minimizing food waste or sustainability in that contract. And so I wanted to, as mentioned, as you recall, Chartwell's is a division of Compass PLC, a very, very large food service organization. They reported 2023 revenue of 31 billion British pounds and net profit of 1.3 billion British pounds. So Compass PLC states in their this most recent annual report, they stated of their top 3 goals is a sustainable future for all. And they did another sustainability report they've done in the past. They noted a whole page to a commitment to reducing food waste. So reducing food waste and sustainability is a high priority of myself and many others in our community and staff. And given the alignment of the Chartwell's parent organization, Compass PLC, and much of our community, it seems natural and obvious that we should include that in our contract, that we should have a goal or goals in that direction, since we obviously have an alignment. So as you're working on that, I hope that that gets included into our contract with Chartwell's, and I hope that the trustees, insist upon it, that it be part of the contract. So thank you.
Thank you, Brian, and thank you for your patience staying with us.
Not even that bad.
Yeah.
Oops, sorry. All right, item 22, board requested items.
I actually have something. So I haven't heard, I don't think, from the mental health team recently. I'd love to hear an update about how it's been going, especially since demand has been high. And also when we kept hearing about chronic absenteeism today, it made me think like, what's the mental health team's role? Because it's probably not that many students, but there is a school phobia. I mean, that is a thing. And the longer you kind of stay away, the harder it is to come back. It just is, kind of worse and worse. And I'm just wondering if the mental health team has a way to be part of alleviating that chronic absenteeism problem we have. If they're trying to assess if school phobia is actually the cause. So I don't know. Anybody else interested? Okay.
Yes, I'd also be interested. Yeah.
Okay.
So,
thank you.
Anything else?
I was doing a little looking around at some of our board's policies, and I didn't see anything in particular around facilities, but it this was about a month or two ago, and I was reminded of it today when the principals were presenting. I would be interested, just given the conversation that was happening around community building, to revisit the reopening of schools and what is happening in the mornings and what is happening in the afternoons after school. I know personally I've driven my kids to school on a rainy day and schools aren't open to, duck under an awning. So just exploring what our obligation is and what we do for our taxpayers and our community and how they can use playgrounds before and after school. I don't know if it's something that would be in a board policy or not. It doesn't appear to be there. And I don't know if it's something that is even direction setting that.
In terms of keeping the grounds open and the gates unlocked, yeah. Okay.
And do you also mean who's allowed to enter into those gates?
No. In after school, I think anybody in Burlingame would be allowed to enter.
Yeah, non-school hours, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
So use of facilities outside of school hours.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is that something that?
I don't know if it's working on a board policy. I don't know. I mean, Marla, I would love information from you if it's even something that the board is involved in.
It's definitely something we can look into. I know that there was a question because of the joint use agreement with the city of Burlingame about use. And that had changed prior to COVID. And then we first put up the buzz-in fences within the last 5 years probably. And then with COVID, we locked down even tighter as to who could come on and who could not come on. But I can definitely provide an update maybe in the weekly update versus a
That'd be
board
great.
meeting. Would that be okay?
Yeah.
Okay,
Perfect.
absolutely.
Anything else? Okay, great. We have a motion to adjourn.
A motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye. Look at that. Not even 10 o'clock.
All right.
Did it.